And I think we're live. So sorry. Oh, sorry. What's up? Yeah, sounds fine. I can bring you up a little bit so that the sound is better on my end. Yeah, so we are gathered here today with Patrick, Full Proof Mastery, and Dr. Iron Junkie, Manil Patel. Thank you for joining us. We're here to react to this thing. An interview that Chris Bryant had with the people who envisioned and executed the Farmkind campaign that was lovingly called Forget Veganuary, just offset instead. We're gonna see what's going on there. I have watched the video and I was raging the entire time, but Manil and Patrick haven't, and so that's what we're gonna do today. What's up, Pat?
Just before we jump in, I'd like to know whether they address their reasons for misinformation. That would be quite interesting. Throughout the video, they explain why they felt the need to deliver misinformation as part of this campaign, and also why they felt the need to pay for animals to be sacrificed. That's not quite interesting.
No, I'm sorry. Those things, as far as I remember, were not addressed. But there are interesting things here anyways to see. How you do?
Between Patrick and Chris, or the other discussions that Chris has been having with other vegans?
No. Yep. No, I think this interview was a little bit soft-balled by Chris, but I think Chris did fine. Like interviewers do give people whom they interview a little bit more sway. But I would have asked different questions, and I think Patrick and Manil, you would as well. So yeah, what did you want to say, Pat?
Published in a Substack, I believe it was Substack by the team at Farmkind, and they started to talk about how much they've made from this campaign.
Oh, one sec. You cannot be heard. 1 second, guys. That's not good.
Have we not been able to? Can you hear me, Manil?
I can hear you.
Yeah, I can see that the people in my live stream cannot hear you. Let me see. Can you speak now, please?
Yeah, what?
No, it can't be picked up. 1 sec. Properties should have gone. Can you try again, please? No, it's not picking up. That's unfortunate.
My end, the mic's fine, everything's fine.
Yeah, the OBS not picking up Discord for some reason. Let me try putting in earbuds. Maybe that will help, and then that will reroute the sound into the OBS. Can you try again, please, guys?
Hello, testing.
Now it's working. Oh, I'm so sorry, everybody. I did not notice, but working now. Okay. So, I'm so sorry. So I'm gonna...
again.
Yeah, I'll just repeat quickly what we've discussed. We said that, you mentioned that they won't address their reasons for promoting misinformation or sacrifice or paying for goats to be sacrificed, which I wanted to hear why they felt the need to do that. And yeah, recently they published a Substack article where they talked about how much they spent on the sponsorships. It was about 18K off the top of my head, and they said that they've made between 16 and around 50K off the top of my head.
16 and 50.
Yeah.
Between 16,700 and 59,000 something. They will address that number, those numbers. They did not say the 18,000 number that they spent on the campaign itself. So when we reach that point, maybe we can address it real quick, in a bit more detail.
Cool. Yeah, it was great. It's great for Dr. Iron Junkie, Dr. Manil to join. He's made 1 or 2 reels on the campaign.
Yeah,
Was
when I
it
first heard about it.
Can you give us your thoughts, Manil, so far? Just like summarize your thoughts about the campaign.
I mean, it's a ridiculous campaign. If I steel man their position, like I get the sentiment behind it. Like Patrick, you had a good debate with Chris trying to steel man his position, which was that their working theory is that through this they can save a lot more animal lives and save a lot more animal lives that may not have been saved if they didn't do this campaign. I just feel like they didn't need to pick on Veganuary, to do this and turn people away that may have considered going vegan. It just seems like a really weird angle they've done, and also then paying these influencers who to eat more animals essentially. I don't understand how that's they could have done so many other things with the money and with this campaign that they chose not to do, and they didn't give any good reasons to Patrick in that debate. If people have watched it, as to why they chose this one. And it's almost
Well,
like
to be fair, the Farmkind people weren't at that debate, and Chris is not representative
true.
of Farmkind.
True,
Yeah,
true, true.
so-
He was still manning their position, wasn't he? So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I've not heard much commentary from the Farmkind people myself because I just feel like I'll just get annoyed listening to these people. I mean, yeah, their website
Well-
alone was enough to piss me off. So yeah.
Well, listen, this is the channel where we get annoyed sometimes, so you're welcome to rage as much as you can. I will probably rage for the both of us if you don't feel comfortable to do that. So,
Yeah.
all right. Oh, mute Discord. I will mute Discord. So many things. We had like
It might be mine as well. It might be mine. I remember last time Felix he taught me how to mute incoming messages on Discord. But I cannot remember exactly how to do it.
you can just I think something in activity. So bottom left corner, you can change, I think, your visibility or something like that. But it's coming from me. I'm pretty sure it was coming from me, and people got annoyed. So there you go. And now it's muted. We just had a serious attack like only half an hour ago on our Discord server. It's a tiny, tiny server, and yet it gets attacked at least every 2 weeks. Kind of weird. It was Joe pinning us. Okay, let's begin because it is a lengthy interview, and I put it on 1.5 speed. Let me know if that sounds okay to you guys.
Okay, well, I'm joined today by Tom Norman and Tony Vanelli of the now famous, or perhaps infamous, depending where you stand, Farmkind. Yeah, we're going to be speaking about your latest campaign, which has rubbed some people the wrong way in vegan communities. I want to get into the campaign and talk about it, but just first of all, it must have been a
I
crazy
can't
few
see
weeks
anything
for you
at the
guys.
moment.
How are you both doing?
Let me just reshare the stream. Can you see now?
Just watch stream.
Yeah.
Should I click the watch stream? All right.
Click.
Yep. Yes,
Okay,
please.
cool.
All right.
Manil, Discord is a weird place, but once you get used to it, it's really fun.
That's my first time using it, so let's see.
So I might have missed 29 seconds, yeah.
I'll restart, no worries. It's
Okay, well, I'm
Go
joined
for it.
today by Tom Norman and Tony Vanelli of the now famous, or perhaps infamous, depending where you stand, Farmkind. Yeah, we're going to be speaking about your latest campaign, which has rubbed some people the wrong way in vegan communities. I want to get into the campaign and talk about it, but just first of all, it must have been a crazy few weeks for you guys. How are you both doing?
Yeah, I'm doing okay. You know, it was hectic. It was busy. Obviously, it was a bit stressful. But I've been an activist for a very long time, so I'm kind of used to handling things this stressful and hectic all the time.
Yeah, I think we always knew that this campaign was going to cause some controversy. I think we have been taken by surprise by the sort of intensity of the reaction. We didn't necessarily even know if anyone would even notice when the first article kind of came out, because you do a lot of stuff in an organization like this that doesn't get.
so just a little bit of foreshadowing and like spoiling. It does feel later on that like as if children were working on this campaign and not people who've been campaigning for years and years. So we'll see.
A lot of attention, just throwing things out constantly. But yeah, I guess ultimately, like we expected there to be some level of controversy, so we were psychologically prepared for that. And I think some of the conversation has been like really interesting. And you've had a couple of conversations on the channel about this. We've had a lot of conversations both publicly and privately with people with a whole range of different views about this campaign. And it has been really interesting to have conversations around, as a movement, around some of the strategic questions I think this campaign has highlighted as well.
Yeah, for sure. I found a lot of the discourse on this very fascinating, as you know. I'm sure most people watching are going to know about the campaign, but just for anyone who's been living underneath a rock, do you want to tell us broadly about the Forget Veganuary campaign and also Farmkind's broader theory of change here?
Sure. Tony, do you want to do that, or do you want me to do it?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so the campaign itself was really aimed to capitalize on the time of year when veganism or diet change is already, a key focus in the media. So obviously it's New Year's resolutions, but then on top of that, Veganuary has become such an institution, particularly in the UK. Every year, the media talk about it. So we knew that the conversation would be happening. So it presented a good opportunity.
So it's become an institution, but they decided to destroy it. Cool.
Opportunity for us to try and shift the narrative a bit. So instead of having it completely focused on the pros and cons of diet change, which, personally, having been at Veganuary now, I had been at Veganuary for 6 years, in the media, the discourse was shifting much more towards the negative, the cons of diet change, rather than the positives, unfortunately. And our goal really was to capitalize on this moment in time, but try and shift the narrative to be like, it's not just diet change. That's not the only option out there for people who want to help animals, because we know most people do. Most people don't like factory farming, but we really wanted to try and move the needle so that the conversation was not just stuck in this one place. And then maybe, Tom, you can speak to the wider theory of change on farming.
Yeah, Pat.
Yeah. I was just going to add that you can encourage other methods of helping animals without, being negative towards other methods which help animals, particularly, with behavior change being, in my view, a minimum moral bar as well.
I think she's also kind of acting as if by asking people to consider veganism a dietary change aspect, and that's it, and not go beyond that as well. Like you said, there's more ways of helping animals, but at the same time, it's like she's saying it's, I think she's missed the whole point of veganism. We're not trying to just get people to help animals a little bit. It's not, we're trying to, it's almost like a mindset shift that we're trying to get people to do, to stop seeing animals as, commodities, as objects. That's what veganism should be. But I don't know, man, like she's been with Veganuary this long, and she's been vegan for however long she was, and she still doesn't get veganism, it seems.
Again, foreshadowing with those quotation marks, Manil.
Farmkind.
Yeah, so Farmkind really exists to solve one of the biggest bottlenecks, or help to solve one of the biggest bottlenecks in the animal movement, which is funding. So we have an estimated 300 million, maybe a little bit less, going into farm animal advocacy of all kinds across the world. This has got a split between 80 billion land animals, 440 billion shrimp, many billions of fish. And so there just simply isn't enough money for all the great campaigns that exist, and for trying new ideas that currently are sitting in the minds of animal advocates that could be, the next thing that that really makes a difference for animals. And so what we try and do is we try and help with that by our kind of core, if you like, business is working with experts to identify charities that have either a particular.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, well, I'm joined today by Tom Norman.
Oh.
I think some of the conversation has been really interesting. You've had a couple of conversations
there for people who want to help animals, because we know most people do. Most people don't like factory farming, but we really wanted to try and move the needle so that the conversation was not just stuck in this one place. And then maybe, Tom, you can speak to the wider theory of change on Farmkind.
Yeah, so Farmkind really exists to solve one of the biggest bottlenecks, or help to solve one of the biggest bottlenecks in the animal movement, which is funding. So we have an estimated 300 million, maybe a little bit less, going into farm animal advocacy of all kinds across the world. This has got a split between 80 billion land animals, 440 billion shrimp, many billions of fish. And so there just simply isn't enough money for all the great campaigns that exist, and for trying new ideas that currently are sitting in the minds of animal advocates that could be, the next thing that that really makes a difference for animals. And so what we try and do is we try and help with that by our kind of core, if you like, business is working with experts to identify charities that have either a particularly strong theory of change, or a particularly good sort of history of demonstrating that they are able to help animals really cost effectively, do a lot with your money, with your donations, make that 300 million go as far as possible. And then we recommend them to the general public to say, look, if you care about this issue, if you want to do something to help, one of the options for how you can help is simply to donate. And then we have this offset idea, which is kind of like where this campaign comes from, which is really specifically targeting that group of people out there who do say that they hate factory farming in surveys, and are not doing anything sort of with their diet or with their personal choices about it. And so saying, okay, can we get those people can we make them think differently about this? Can we make them think about it as like, like a bit like offsetting your carbon or something? You can get them to be donating in this kind of other way. And this is kind of one of the experiments
So I was raging about this in one of my videos. It's like when you're trying to offset the carbon, you actually offset the carbon. But in their case, the word offset is used in a peculiar way because they are trying to offset slaughter with increased welfare. Which they do have a theory, right? I want to be charitable, that increased welfare will at some point lead decreased slaughter or decreased number of individuals exploited and slaughtered. Like that kind of a later in life theoretical position, I don't know, just doesn't vibe with me. I would maybe like say, yeah, like maybe that's also a way to attack this if there was any kind of empirics behind it. I don't know. What do you think, Pat?
So yeah, I agree that the word offset is not very honest, or in fact, well, exactly what's happening, right? Because someone's paying for rights violations, and then down the line, they're giving donations in the hope that it will reduce animals farmed. So I've got a rule that like being honest, clear with information. So I think it'll be much better to say something like you can donate money that would potentially in the future reduce suffering of animals, or reduce animals who would be farmed in the future potentially. But yeah, the word offset I think is not very correct. Manil, what do you think?
Again, I mean, to still man their position, it almost feels like they're trying to use clever language almost to hide what they're actually doing from the people that would be paying the money. Almost like it's almost to make people who eat animals feel better about their choices. That's what, you know how greenwashing does that with carbon offsets and all that. You're basically doing that here. You're ethics washing is what I called it before, right? This is a form of ethics washing where you're saying that, oh yeah, you can offset the harm that you're doing to, I mean, you're clearly, why would you be offsetting anything? You're offsetting harm that you're doing to animals right now, right? So you're allowing people to admit that what they're doing is bad for the animals, and then creating this opportunity to offset that. But as you said, they've used that word offset there sort of almost deceptively, because it doesn't really offset anything right now. It's a future potential offsetting, again, which, as you said before as well, there's no empirical evidence that this is going to actually do that. It's they're taking a bet on it, which is what Chris said in his debate with you. I know he was trying to show their position, but they're betting on this, and I think they are using some data that they've got, I think, on their website, where they're saying like however much donated could potentially save these many animals.
They don't say save, they say help.
Help.
Or
Yeah, that's it.
something
Sorry.
like
Help animals. And again, that word help is very ambiguous. Like, what do you mean help? Eventually, they're all going to be killed anyway.
Yeah. And one of those things that does irk me as somebody who followed small farms, homesteads for like a year, like almost obsessively, and had like a Instagram account documenting that. When vegans say, "Oh, factory farming is bad," it's like immediately a red light in my head, because all farming is bad, and I think at this point I can make quite a few claims where small farming is actually worse for animal welfare, right? If they're going for welfare, small farming is sometimes absolutely worse for the animals. More torturous, more suffering, stuff like that.
Yeah. The Stillman there, maybe I hope they all agree that all farming is immoral of sentient beings. Potentially they believe that if we're gonna be charitable, that using the word factory farming makes them seem more what's the word, more like engage, like more attractive, well, like they connect more with non-vegans. But
Yeah, it's a low-hanging fruit.
Yeah, but low-hanging fruit. But Farmkind, they employ non-vegans inside their organization, so they're not a vegan organization, although their founders are vegan. So the sort of advocacy which I'll do with Farmkind is the same which I'll do with non-vegans. It's logical consistency tests, stuff like this, which I did with Chris during our discussion. Whether you would accept the same sort of things happening in an analogous situation involving humans. I know, to lots of people, logical consistency doesn't really hit home, but I just like exposing the psychopathic entailments of people's positions.
Yeah, like I kind of understand why they use factory farming out there, outside in the wildy, because a lot of people, you'll meet them with animal torture in Dominion, or you meet them on Discord and like describe what is the vegan position. They will like almost automatically, it's a cliche, it's a thought-stopping cliche. They will say, well, factory farming is obviously wrong. A lot of people will say that, even though when you like question them, well, why? It's going to be a bit more difficult for them to answer because it's an automatic answer. So I understand why in the wildy they use the word factory farming. But then now this interview, this vegan interview on a vegan channel, it's not clear to me why they're using the same rhetoric.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Okay.
Experiments we've been running since we started, and trying to explore like how is this appealing? Like how many people like this? Like can you scale this concept up? And obviously this
scaling the concept when they actually like paid for a goat to be killed is kind of irked me at this point when they said it, when I listened to it the first time.
Campaign, the Veganuary campaign was kind of like intimately linked with that part of what we offer.
Okay, nice. Well, yeah, thank you for that background on the campaign and the organisation more broadly. That's really helpful. And we'll talk more about the Forget Veganuary campaign specifically. But on the theory of change, donating to animal charities is good and can help a lot of animals. But presumably, for that to work, presumably somebody has to be eating less meat. Is that entailed, do you think? And does that mean that this theory kind of runs out of, there's a time when it becomes kind of self-defeating?
Yeah, so I think two things. I think this actually like is part of the discourse around kind of offsetting, like broader than this campaign. I think this really gets to why, in my opinion, some of the kind of critique of it as a practical sort of theory of change is kind of misconceived. We're not proposing that like this is like this is the solution to factory farming, and if everyone just offset, there'll be no factory farming. Oh, like clearly that's not the case. We're saying that like where we are now, like living in the world that we currently do, with the numbers of vegans that we have, with the amount of money that as a movement we have, a thing that we could advocate people to do now, a sort of first step that people could be taking to help grow the movement, to help increase the number of people who are doing something to help animals, and also practically to help animals in factory farms right now, and advance our more strategic long.
Yeah, Pat.
Yeah, post. Yeah, like why do they keep on talking factory farming if they're all vegans? Tony's not vegan, but Tom apparently is, as far as I'm aware, and so they're just keeping on talking. Well, he keeps on mentioning the word factory farming, when all farming is rights violations.
Yeah, well, again, so here's my thing. On my channel, I do often defend the utilitarian vegans because I think utilitarianism can lead you into an abolitionist stance. But once in a while, utilitarianism does really like irk me a little bit when it's like repeated like that, factory farming, without talking about whatever the equivalent in utilitarianism to rights violation is, right? Yeah, I don't know.
Term goals like cultivated meat, like institutional diet change campaigns, which some of the money that we raise also goes to fund. We're saying that we think this offset concept, or donating as an alternative ask, is a really exciting, interesting step, like theory of change that we should be seeing if that's more compelling. So, research does suggest that people do generally see this as an easier thing to do than changing their diet.
But this is one of those things. I'm also going to go into like my personal theory without empirics for a second, but apparently that's what we're doing. But like, I think sometimes we have the mistake of talking about, oh, people do this when there are like several sections of people. So I think there is for instance, in case of what they're talking about, there is probably a section of people who eat whatever they want, but they feel some kind of a guilt, some kind of a lack of justice when they do this, but for whatever reason they are not willing or not capable of changing, right? And when I say not capable, is like sometimes people go into some kind of a addictive loop or something. But then I think there is a much larger subsection of people who would hear their campaign and go, I can eat whatever the fuck I want, and they will not donate to animals. So, Pat, you muted.
Or alternatively, someone might donate and then it could cause a rebound effect where they donate once and just be like, go on a, massively increase their consumption of meat because they feel good about donating a tiny bit.
Yeah, I've actually read about this. It's called, I believe, moral self-image. And often when you do something good, like donate to charity, you then rebound indeed with like bad actions, because now your image of your morality, how moral you are, have increased, and you're more forgiving towards your discretions.
Yeah, there was a recent paper I read recently where people who are not that morally motivated, if they have sort of a plant-based meal that's labeled as, well, environmentally friendly, they're more likely in the next meal to choose the non-environmentally friendly option. So this is more based on sustainability actually, but yeah, it's a sort of acting in the other way, so it's not reinforcing the good behaviors. And what else? Yeah, I've also seen the paper that males, they're less likely to donate to the out group rather than the in group as well. So in the videos which JJ DeLion made, something we touched upon with Chris is that he didn't actually ask people to donate in the video. So I'll be interested if Farmkind, they've got any statistics. Has JJ DeLion donated himself? Even though we don't know whether those donations will actually reduce animals farmed for sure, but it would just be interesting to know whether he donated and whether the viewers of his videos donated, given that he didn't say to donate as well.
Yeah. Minil, thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it's the whole thing again on their website where they're basically treating adults like almost worse than children. You know, people they're kind of acting as if some people are just not capable of change, and therefore they shouldn't be, we shouldn't be advocating for that change. It's just crazy. Like, you wouldn't do it in any other movement. I get what they're saying, that today in this non-vegan world we need to use like every tool we can and things like that, but you're not going to get, just because you're not going to get certain people to shift, let's say, overnight, doesn't mean it's not worth pursuing. Like I myself, like I wasn't born vegan, right? Been vegan 8 years. You guys weren't born vegans, I'm assuming, as well. I mean, I know, Patrick, you weren't, right? But like, once upon a time, if someone had come to us saying, oh, you can carry on eating the way you're eating and just give a bit of money, you probably would have been like, okay. You would have done it once and then carried on. But ultimately,
I wouldn't have done it at all. I would just continued.
You just continued eating. You wouldn't even donate. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I would have donated, because I was really, I hated factory farms, and I'm going back to the factory farms because they keep making a point of it. Is because the average person sees how it's visibly obvious how cruel and horrible it is for on industrial scale what's happening to the animals in factory farms, because that's the worst of the worst footage you get anyway, and it's easy for people to relate to and become empathetic towards the animals that way. But JJ the Lion doesn't give a crap. Come on. I'm telling you, he doesn't. Like, I don't know him, but just from that video alone and his videos on YouTube, him and all these other influencers, they don't care. They don't care. They see animals as food. That's it. And they'll make the way he was touching that goat and all of that. Like, I'm sure people have seen that video as well. It was just ridiculous.
I've seen the video of him eating that goat, and he was talking about donations and offset while this pile of flesh was still releasing cooking fumes from it. It was horrific.
I've not seen that one, so maybe he did ask for donations in that reel, since you're mentioning that. But yeah, in the video I saw, he didn't actually ask for donations. But yeah, it's a veganism is a justice movement towards animals, and I like to bring in the logical consistency as well, and whether they would find it acceptable with any other justice movement to where an organization would pay to create victims in the hope of getting donations of somehow reducing the number of victims in the future. Where
Yeah,
you can also get donations without, you can get donations in so many ways without creating rights violations yourself.
Yeah, Pat, you had quite a few ideas. Can you go through a few of them? But before you do that, I will, if I'll try to remember, to put Patrick's debate with Chris in the show notes after the fact. And if one of my mods can find that link and put it right now in the chat, that would be also fantastic. So, Pat, what ideas did you have how to show this Farmkind initiative without changing its meaning too much, but also without killing the goat or increasing rights violations?
Yeah, so there are a number of ways in which, the cruelty ways of getting donations, which I mentioned, to reduce potentially future animals farmed, not just factory farmed or animals farmed. Because we're a vegan channel, so we talk about rights violations. It's not factory farming just the problem. But yeah, one method I mentioned in the video, well, in my discussion with Chris, was getting JJ DeLine to visit a sanctuary and pay him to do a video in a sanctuary, and then ask for donations, and then Farmkind could at the end make sure that there's no misinformation in the video as well, such as in the original JJ DeLine video. He made claims such as meat is essential in rough terms. Alternatively, a surprise challenge where the non-vegan is under the impression that they're eating an animal, but then they're suddenly revealed that they're eating plant-based meat instead, which in studies there's one study which I saw where people preferred the plant-based burger to the animal flesh burger. So that could be alternatively, a secret reveal. I even mentioned to Chris during our discussion that even if they feel the need to give them animal flesh, like that's the best method of getting donations. There's ways of getting animal flesh without rights violations. For example, restaurants who are giving out leftovers at the end of the day, because they're not a vegan organization. So, but personally, I would not support that. But ethically, but yeah.
Yeah, there is catering services often make quite a lot more food than what is required, and later they just throw it out and shit, or give it to the workers. So they could have found that. Could have scraped the corpse off the floor somewhere. I don't know.
Yeah. When I was speaking with Chris, he mentioned that maybe whatever they were giving to that, whoever they were giving to them, was going to be thrown out anyway. But at least they did not state that, so we have to assume that they're paying for the rights violations. But there's so many, plant-based meats which taste so great. What data? They haven't provided any data that that this is the method that will reduce animals farmed across, time, compared to all the other methods, cruelty-free ways.
Yeah, I got the impression later on that they actually witnessed the goat being killed. I might be wrong though, so we'll see. I don't know. Manil, anything to add, or can we continue?
No, continue.
All right.
It can be
I'm
almost as
curious,
effective in terms of the amount of animal suffering.
Sorry, Pat. Yeah.
I was just gonna ask, Manil, would he, if they were to give restaurant leftovers, obviously in terms of justice, that's not quite pragmatic, but would you see that as a better option than paying for a goat to be slaughtered?
Yeah, I mean, if the restaurant leftovers are going to be thrown out, the animal's already been killed. Food's going to be thrown out. It's going to go to waste. The flesh.
Yeah.
But I mean, right, the way they view it is food, right? So it's going to be thrown out, I think. But they just wouldn't have done that. That wouldn't have been their campaign. They're doing maximum sort of shock factor. I bet they loved it. They loved the attention they got from this, right? From how shocked us vegans were about all of this, and that's what they were going for. And I think they were going to appeal to whatever these influencers wanted to eat as well. Yes, it probably would have been better to do it a more ethical way, like leftover foods and stuff. But I don't think they were ever gonna do that, or even plant-based meats or anything like that. They weren't gonna do that.
Yeah, I didn't get the impression that they loved the attention they got from vegans. I got the impression that they were incredibly surprised by it. I thought I think they thought it was a fantastic campaign that will yield results without any pushback.
That's incredibly
Yeah.
nice and almost childlike from someone who was a Veganuary campaigner and was vegan for however long she was vegan, if she thought that vegans weren't going to be mad about this.
That's the impression I got anyways, but we'll see later if you get the same impression. Yeah, Pat.
I'll just quickly add that I've seen some Farmkind job posts on LinkedIn, and in their job posts, they say that we're explicitly looking for people that are not, we would prefer you to not be vegan in our company. So this is why I like to bring back the logical consistency test, because this is something a non-vegan might not be aware of, the logical entailments of their position, things such as name the trait and stuff like that.
Yeah, weird. Okay, let's continue.
Prevented, if not more so, quite easily. Obviously, depends how much you're given to wear. And so we think for that reason, right now in 2026, this is a really interesting thing to be trying to advocate for more people to do. That doesn't mean if you wind the clock forward 20, 30 years, that will still be the case. Maybe hopefully things will have massively moved on and we'll be, talking about trying to get people to adopt eating cultivated meat or whatever it might be, right? But we're living in the 2026 world and thinking about what could be effective right now.
Another thing they could have done, cultivated meat does exist, like cultivated salmon, cultivated chicken. It would have been maybe a little bit more expensive, but they did I don't know, how much does a fucking goat cost? Right, to buy and slaughter? I'm not sure, probably quite a lot. They could have instead gotten less food, but from a source that entails much less rights violations.
Given the uncertainty as a vegan animal rights advocate, I will always choose the cruelty-free options rather than financing sentient beings to be slaughtered. And for 18K, which based on the article they spent, my intuition is that surely they could have got some cultivated lab flesh for 18K from somewhere.
Yeah.
And
to help animals. Just as once we banned cages in the UK, which we will have done soon, hopefully, there'll be no point in giving money to a cage-free campaign in the UK.
I think another point as well, and for me this is equally important, is that it's getting rid of that artificial divide between the vegans and the non-vegans, finding the common ground that unites most.
Bro, artificial divide? The divide is real. One group believes it's not okay to exploit and slaughter animals for unnecessary food. The other one doesn't. The divide is quite clear. I'm not sure why. Somebody say something. Pat, Minil, you're muted, sorry.
No, I was going to say, just let her keep speaking. I want to hear the rest of this.
Okay.
Well,
Sorry.
Most people in the world, which is they don't like to see animals being harmed unnecessarily. And, the vegan belief is, well, to eat them is unnecessary. And that's a valid point of view. But for many people, that to them is just unachievable. They may have tried to give up animal products in the past and not been able to, or it's just not something that appeals to them for whatever reason. They're just unable to do it. So rather than being, us good, them bad, this campaign is a way to say, no, we all share this common ground. There are other things that...
Yeah, Pat.
I was going to add, so as part of their campaign, they have actually created misinformation to tell people that it's, animal flesh is essential and stuff like that. So they're actually making it even, why are they putting the misinformation out there?
So I'm going to be a little charitable here because I think sometimes dealing with mini celebs or influencers online is a little hard. The influencers, they push out content without really asking for details sometimes. And I think that's the reason that DJ the Lion, or whatever his name is JJ the Lion, didn't really even understand what was going on. I think the brief that he was given was preliminary. And then that created the misinformation, the lack of asking people to donate and all of that stuff, right? It happened with me, right? I asked rather large accounts to do something for one of my initiatives, And they didn't fuck it up too bad, because the ask was very simple. But in this case, if you give somebody bad brief, they're not going to ask questions. They're just going to go with whatever their understanding is, because they have no time. They're like an influencer, right? No time, no patience.
So JJ's the line, that was not the only misinformation. They also had a game on their website where it's sort of a bit like you're moving a block to get rid out of other blocks, and on the blocks there was various sorts of information, such as off the top of my head, one of the blocks was you need to do so much planning as a vegan, which I don't do any planning as a vegan.
Yeah, I just stick a multi. Anyways, did you see the Forget Farmkind initiative that one of people in our server who joined our server, right? He didn't do it. He did it out of his own validity, made, and it's really cool. It's
Yeah, I saw that.
yeah, I'll put it in the chat again. And patterns.
I saw that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw that, and it also towards the end of the website, as you click, there's also an ask for donations as well. So the two are compatible. You can ask for donations without being negative towards behavior change and justice movements.
Well, all right, let's continue.
You can do as an individual to help, make an impact on this issue that you also care about. And as we grow that movement of people who are trying to do something good for farmed animals, we will make more progress in all the other areas that we want to see. So, we will make more progress towards cultivated meat and institutional change and individual diet change, because it will become easier for people who care about animals to make those individual changes. So it's really increasing our movement's potential by bringing in people who broadly agree with us, but are just, unable to do the one thing that most people think they have to do to be on our side.
I mean, they only agree with you again if the only thing you're trying to abolish is actual factory farming. Then they like agreeing with you as in paying lip service to it. I don't know. Again, I think they're talking about such a small niche of people who actually care about factory farming or like farming animals as a whole, but are not vegan. I think it's such a tiny niche. I don't know. And I think that's why the donation amount looks so pitiful next to what they actually did for it.
Yeah, there's useful clarifications, and I am pretty sympathetic to the theory of change overall, and it's useful to hear the clarification that it's kind of contingent on where we are now and what is most easily achievable and most easily impactful. I think, in my view, it kind of comes down to an empirical question of which approach is more tractable to help more animals, basically. And
yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Okay, good. I'm glad to hear. So there's, I think I've seen some evidence and discussed some evidence.
Yeah,
in favor of.
Yeah, go on.
Yeah, I'll add. He's saying which approach will help more animals. So there's approaches which don't have direct rights violations. So those, we're certain that the approaches that don't have rights violations, and everything else is just uncertain with regards to whether the donations, how many animals they will help to stop being farmed. That's all uncertain, but what is certain is that the goat is dead and Farmkind paid for that goat to be slaughtered.
Yeah, well, I believe Chris said in your debate that Farmkind believed that there was no other way. I don't know how they back that up. I don't know.
Your approach, and that funding is more important at this stage than diet change, frankly, and a more tractable, achievable ask. Do you think there's enough evidence to support that this theory is helping more animals in the long term? Obviously, the concern is, on the one side, you're kind of doing some moral licensing, and perhaps people are going to be less likely to go vegan if they think that they can offset instead, versus the kind of pragmatic case, what can we actually do with the donations, though? Can we help more animals that way? What's your thoughts on if there's enough evidence to kind of support this route?
Yeah, so I think ultimately, we don't have enough evidence to be confident in any direction on this question, and I would encourage research people out there to look at this question more, because if we look at the evidence based on, for example, vegan pledges and kind of vegan asks in general, there isn't very, very strong evidence in particular either direction. My personal view
So here's the thing: if there is no strong evidence in each direction, I wouldn't take the direction that actually increases rights violations. You know what I mean? If both are like as unfounded, let's take the one that doesn't increase rights violations. I don't know, but silly me.
If you look at long-term trends of veganism.
Sorry, Pat, you wanted to add something?
I was going to say, I'd like to know whether, as I mentioned in my discussion with Chris, whether the Farmkind team would accept, in an analogous situation, an organization just paying for human rights violations because they've got their intuition that that will reduce human rights violations compared to all cruelty-free methods in the future.
Yeah.
Overall, they are relatively stagnant in the US for a very long time, in the UK for at least the last 6 years. There's a depressing Our World in Data article where it has a time series for the UK for eaters, vegans, vegetarians, and flexitarians, I think. And you can just scroll along and see how it changes since 2019. And essentially, it bubbles up, like vegans bubble up and down a little bit, like by 1 or 2 points, but they stay around 2 to 3 points the entire way through, right? So I think that I would say that the evidence suggests that veganism as a kind of ask has a lot of problems. It has historically not performed particularly well, despite people trying a lot of different things. It doesn't mean that there isn't some way we haven't discovered yet that would be much more effective. Of course, that might be true, but where we are currently, I think the evidence is strong that it is an especially like promising place to put our efforts in given all the things we can do to help animals right now. Whether we can use whether you can get people to donate instead. I mean, lots of people already donate. Like, this is a very common action. Far more people donate to some charity. Far more people donate to animal charities, in fact, than are vegans. In the US, I think it's about 14% of people give to animal charities. Just that the vast majority of those are giving to dogs and cats charities right now. About 95% of those. And that doesn't include wildlife charities as well. So that would be even more people if you added that stuff in. And so I think that there's a prima facie case that the offsetting or donating instead of climate change or as an alternative ask is very promising for people. It also has the kind of some just like intuitive advantages of you do it once and then you don't have to remember to do it every single day, whereas you have to make a choice every time you eat to eat this or not that. And some of the problems that we know that veganism has for people, like people reporting feeling socially isolated, things like this, are just not.
What's that? Did he just say so you do it once? What, donate just once?
No, he says no, I think he means you set up a monthly donation once and then
fine.
Maybe, I think I'm trying.
Okay. Well, if that's okay.
Sorry, Pat, you want to add something? Or
I was just going to say we can listen back just to make sure if you want. But
yeah, let's do that.
Where we are currently, I think the evidence is strong that it is an especially like promising place to put our efforts in given all the things we can do to help animals right now. Whether we can use whether you can get people to donate instead. I mean, lots of people already donate. Like, this is a very common action. Far more people donate to some charity. Far more people donate to animal charities, in fact, than are vegans. In the US, I think it's about 14% of people give to animal charities. Just that the vast majority of those are giving to dogs and cats charities right now. About 95% of those. And that doesn't include wildlife charities as well. So that would be even more people if you added that stuff in. And so I think that there's a prima facie case that the offsetting or donating instead of climate change or as an alternative ask is very promising for people. It also has the kind of some just like intuitive advantages of you do it once and then you don't have to remember to do it every single day, whereas you have to make a choice every time you eat to eat this or not that. And some of the problems that we know.
Yeah, it's unclear, but I think they mean like a monthly donation. I'm not sure, but now that I think of it later.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's just he misspoke because it would make sense. I think on the website it is a subscription, right, Patrick?
Yeah, as I understand, you can do a monthly donation. So yeah, we can assume that's what he meant. Just to still
make that anyway.
Yeah, that said, though, I'm going to spoil again. Later, he does say that some people have used the calculator to calculate the entire life ahead and just donated once. So that's included in $16,000 to $59,000. We'll see.
Veganism has.
A good question. Another question which I had is how much do you, if you're going to convert the life of a sentient being into pounds, how much would that be? So the life of the goat that was slaughtered, how much would Farmkind, if like hypothetically, value that life?
Yeah, I was gonna wait with that point until they to the point where they're gonna start talking about the gold. But yeah, well, point well made, anyways, Pat. Yeah.
So people reporting feeling socially isolated and things like this are just not true of diet change. Excuse me, are not true of donating in the same way. So I think I don't know is the short answer. We're trying to find out, but I think there are good reasons to think that it might be a more effective ask.
Yeah, there's okay, fair enough, interesting. And I've heard you saying, well, we'll get into it. I've heard you saying as well that it may not necessarily be the case that there's a massive reduction in veganism as a result of somebody saying this. I think you've gone on to this discussion in David Rams. It's kind of assumed,
I mean, what would be the evidence for that? It's like we can pull empirics out of our ass, but why are we giving them so much stock? Right? Like, how can they even measure the damage they've done to Veganuary or veganism or whatever with their campaign a few weeks after? I don't know about that.
of a kind of model where there's a number of animals that you can help by more donations, but then there's a number of animals harmed by fewer vegans. There's kind of an assumption that there are in fact going to be fewer vegans as a result of a campaign like this, but you've expressed some uncertainty as whether that's the case.
Yeah, Tony, do you want to speak to this question? I've talked about
Yeah, I mean, this is based entirely on my personal experience, but that is 35 years as an animal rights activist, increasingly spending less and less time in the vegan bubble, spending a lot more time with people.
This shit annoyed the fuck out of me. Who the fuck said we're in a fucking bubble? I'm an abolished animal rights advocate. I go online at least twice a week to talk to people, to talk to non-vegans. I'm not in a fucking bubble. Shut the fuck up. So
Yeah, so I mean, she's talking about her stupid personal. She's talking about her personal experience, which great, good for her. But it's anyway. Let's let her finish the sentence and see what she says. She's annoying me too, though. I can.
I'm interested there because she said she's an animal rights, advocate. Yeah, would she accept?
Rights activist, she called herself for 35 years, by the way.
People who have never thought about these issues, have never been inside a factory farm, never watched a video. And, I've spent a lot of time sitting in saunas at gyms with weightlifting men. And there are very few of them who have ever contemplated the idea of going vegan, full stop. But I had great conversations with these guys about the way animals are treated, because they would talk a lot about the meat they were eating and their protein, etc. And when you raise the issue of factory farming and talk about how chickens are treated, they're just as appalled as any of us. But the chances of them stop eating that chicken, is very, very slim. So,
yeah,
it's from that experience.
yeah.
Yeah, she said she's an animal rights activist, right? And now she's just talking about factory farming on the vegan channel. Behind closed, when we're vegans together, we should just be talking about all farming, all rights violations being wrong.
I think she's given the example of like when she sat in saunas. When you're sitting with the average person, like I talk about this too. I think when you're sitting with the average person and they get interested in the fact that you're vegan, when you ask them, do they think that what happens to animals is right or this and that? I think a lot of them talk about factory farming, like a lot of non-vegans. That's the first thing that comes to their mind, their lips, because it's the worst of the worst of that they've seen and that they're aware of. And most people won't even watch footage of factory farms, especially like a lot of meat eaters I know. Even I was the same. Like when I eat meat, I wouldn't watch footage of it because it would move me so much to recognize what's happening is so wrong and that you're contributing to it. So that's why she's bringing it up in this context. But at the same time, she's again assuming that these men wouldn't go vegan. Like, Patrick, you and I know so many vegan men. Like who train and go to the gym and lift and all of that. So again, she's creating this narrative that there are just people that will never change, but that's not everybody. I don't think that number is as big as she thinks it is, especially if you don't try and focus on getting people to change their mind. And if you give them this alternative reality, which is you can carry on doing what you're doing, of course they're going to pick that. It's the easier route. It's the path of least resistance.
Yeah. We also need people going vegan because ultimately we need laws and laws need votes. Would JJ DeLine vote to make factory farming or all farming illegal?
No, highly unlikely. I bet like most of his challenges are eating McD's or something.
Alone, I would say the kind of people who this campaign and Farmkind is aimed at are very unlikely to stop eating meat anytime in the near future until it becomes much more accessible for them, more affordable for them to choose the alternatives. It's just, that is a fantasy land, I'm afraid.
Well, she was just talking about people who lift weights. That's a privileged position in the first place. Those people spend an enormous amount of money on supplements, on food, on like gym equipment, on gym membership, on doctors. Like, what the fuck is she talking about affordability? I don't know.
Affordability while they're sitting in a sauna. Remember, yeah, they're sitting in a sauna.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess the thing I is when we set up the campaign, we thought about, I guess, I think one of the, Tony's mentioned this already, is a lot of the media of Veganuary is already negative. And so the way we've been talking about it is like, we're essentially sort of trying to judo flip the pre-existing negative coverage into something that is, instead of talking about like, should you change or not, is yes, we all agree that factory farming is bad. Now, what do we do about it? Like that was sort of the aim of this campaign. And so I think to think that the campaign would be would cause less vegans, you'd have to believe that we caused new negative articles to happen that wouldn't otherwise have happened, just with some other theme. That people who otherwise were thinking of doing Veganuary are reading the Telegraph, the Mail, GB News, etc., and were sort of on the edge, but then they read this article and it pushed over the edge. And I think that, I mean, we literally don't know, right? But like, I think that seems like quite, I think our baseline should be this, that's quite unlikely to be the case.
I mean, what's the likelihood of those people to start donating to animal charities?
Like, what did you just say? That it's unlikely that people read these negative articles about vegans and therefore then chose not to go vegan. Like, of course, if people are on the fence, like if I was on the fence, literally, again, you got to put yourself in the shoes of people that are on the fence about this. If I saw an article telling me that I can carry on doing what I'm doing, and by donating, I'm gonna offset the unethical things that I'm doing, yeah, I'll bite your hand off. I'll literally do that. I will pay the money and do it. Like it's crazy, and of course that will create less vegans because you've just given them an out. You've given people another option, another way. So I don't know how he thinks that's unlikely. I think it's very likely. The number of it might be small. Like how many people actually saw the negative press about Veganuary and therefore kind of dissuade them from becoming trying Veganuary and therefore then going vegan. I think the number might be small, but I don't think it's unlikely that there are people that would have been influenced by that. Like they definitely would have.
Pat, anything to add?
Yeah, I'll just add that, the donations are not a given. Someone might just see that newspaper article and just be okay, I'm not going to be vegan, and just not even donate as well. And that's one thing. The donations are not given, especially because the study I mentioned earlier, men are less likely, males, to donate to the out group, and non-human animals are the out group. They're more likely to donate to issues affecting men and stuff like that. That's one thing I wanted to mention.
Yeah. No, I mean, everything that we do know about the psychology of change, the psychology of self-image, that, like most people, I think, would do neither. Manil, I think you are like an exception, frankly. I would have done neither. I was that type of asshole. But okay.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. I mean, I certainly see the thinking and, like I said, the theory of change here. It's a very bold choice to, for the campaign, partner with competitive eaters and having them do the day of meat eating challenges. It's a very bold choice. I can see the thinking there. You're kind of betting that you're in a trolley problem-like situation where essentially you can help many times more animals by sacrificing a few, by saying there's going to be a lot of resources.
It's a trolley problem that they created that didn't exist in the first place. It's worth mentioning.
Yeah. I've made a modified trolley problem, which I sent to you post, where it's actually there's different tracks. You've got a track where it's no animals sacrificed and ask for donations, and then all the outcomes are unknown. They could have targeted people who are also on the fence through different initiatives, and also not be negative towards behavior change, but potentially say, like, you know, if veganism is too hard for you, you can donate, or something like this. There's ways which don't require rights violations, which could be in terms of donations, which we don't know whether they will actually, how effective they'll be. We don't know the harm as well of promoting violence through social media.
Yeah, and we'll hear in a minute just how much they failed to predict a bunch of stuff about this campaign, but we'll get there.
Is behind this one goat, for example, that we can use to help animals if we sacrifice the one goat. Is that a fair characterization of the thinking there?
I think a critical part of this is, like, how do you get people to listen to you? And part of our experience with this organization is we did, you know, for example, social media videos that have say literally nothing about your diet at all. That's like, I don't know, chicken smarter than you think, or something like this, or like, oh, look at this charity that's like helping pigs to you know, not be kept in farrowing crates, and the comments underneath are all, but I'm not going to go vegan though, you know, but like I love my bacon, etc, etc. There was just like
and what makes you think that they're going to donate then? They're going to donate? Guess.
Assumption that you're talking about diet change when you start talking about farmers. And
I personally, I've not really looked what the social media is saying on welfarist posts, but I don't know. Do you know, do welfarist posts where it's like, you know, donate to reduce cages? Is it quite common to see posts like, I'm not going to go vegan under those posts?
Give an example of, like, if someone puts a picture of like a cute pig or something like that, you'll often see people post bacon though, or I get what he's trying to say. He's creating this sort of, we see it all the time on social media where there'll be pictures of, like, or videos of cute animals, and you'll see people post stuff like that, like, oh, I could never go vegan. That always happens. So yeah, I think he's just giving an example.
Yeah, it does exist. It does exist, but like, I don't know. I don't follow as much like welfare campaigns and shit. Whenever I do see like a welfare website, welfare campaign, I do look for the words vegan or plant-based on that site, and it's usually non-existent, but sometimes it is like buried somewhere in there, like, yeah, you can also go plant-based or vegan. Something like that.
The things we're trying to do.
He mentioned the farrowing crates. He mentioned the farrowing crates. I assumed he was talking about a post where it's like, donate to some sort of welfarist campaign, and then they're being accompanied a bit like with anti-vegan trolls. But
yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah,
is get past that, get people to actually listen to the thing we're actually saying, which is the ways that these animals are being kept is not a way that you would find acceptable. That you do care about this and want to do something, and actually there is something you could do about this that you'd be prepared to do. And there is some research from an organization called Pax Fauna that says that people are more likely to, one of their findings was that more people are likely to listen to people who they know on these issues than they were prepared to listen to vegans or people who say, oh, I used to eat meat but I'm vegan, or anything like this. And so there was a kind of there's element of like this feels like something the media could be interested in, but there was a real kind of thought behind why we chose to do the campaign this way, based on some evidence.
Yeah.
It sort of froze for me. He said people are more likely to donate, and then it was like something on these issues. I don't know if it froze on your end as well, but I didn't quite catch the word. He said people are more likely to donate.
Tom has a terrible internet connection right there, but I'll rewind it a little bit back just to see if we can figure it out.
Listen to vegans or people who say, oh, I used to eat meat but I'm vegan.
Yeah, he's saying that I think
you do care about this and want to do something, and actually there is something you could do about this that you'd be prepared to do. And there is some research from an organization called Pax Fauna that says that people are more likely to, one of their findings was that more people are likely to listen to people who they know on these issues than they were prepared to listen to vegans or people who say, oh, I used to eat meat but I'm vegan, or anything like this. And so
I think it just means like people who do eat meat. I think they said that's kind of such.
I think he's saying that people are more likely to listen to people who eat meat on these sorts of issues than listen to vegans on this issue. And yeah, I get that sentiment.
Yeah, I went vegan from mostly non-vegans talking shit, frankly.
There was a kind of there's element of like this feels like something the media could be interested in, but there was a real kind of thought behind why we chose to do the campaign this way, based on some evidence and our experience of trying to communicate with people about these issues.
Yeah, I think people have to believe you. They have to feel that you're genuine when you say you don't have to change your diet. They have to genuinely believe that you're not trying to get them to go vegan by the back door, or they will switch off almost as quickly as if your message was simply go vegan. So by partnering with people who were actually eating meat, and to be fair, like, these guys are doing these challenges regularly, so it's something they would have been doing, like animals they would have been consuming either on behalf of Farmkind or as part of Farmkind's campaign, or for a restaurant who was they were promoting, etc.
Yeah, but you wouldn't be paying them for it. God.
Like, this is what they do every day. So by showing, like, no, we mean it. When we say you don't have to change your diet to help animals, there are other ways you can have a big impact. We really mean that.
Yeah, and so, I mean, yeah, again,
Yeah,
I
just
just
add that
appreciate.
Go.
I'll add that there's infinite ways of getting that message across without funding animal farming. You don't have to talk about behavior change for one way, for example. Manil, have you got anything to add?
I just want to get through this. Let's keep going.
Let's go.
Theory that, I mean, the theory that you can, even if there is counterfactually some animals harmed, let's say, I can appreciate the theory that this is going to enable you to help much more animals in the long term. And I think I'm very sympathetic to that kind of utilitarian approach and way of thinking about it. It's, some people say that the animals that we're proposing to help in this situation are much more out of sight, out of mind. They probably don't even exist yet. Whereas that was a real goat that guy ate. So what was it like to actually do the pulling the lever in the trolley problem? What was that like for you guys subjectively?
Tony, do you want to speak to this, or do you want me to?
Yeah. I mean, I guess I've been in so many farms. I mean, I've lost track of how many factory farms and slaughterhouses I've been into, and how many.
I'll add that it's not the trolley problem, because we don't know how many, like, after the sacrifice of the goat, how many victims there will be on that track. So it's literally just all unknown, the number of victims on the different tracks, and they've actually decided to create a victim themselves.
Yeah, like my intuition would be that they actually increase the amount of victims because they appease the people, like they relieve the guilt in some people who will increase the amount of animal products they eat. The intuition that it would decrease somewhere, sometime in the long run through the increase of welfare, which they think will happen through the increase of donations. So, I don't know. Hey, Chris, what's up? Chris is in the chat. You're welcome to join if you want, Chris.
Literally weeks of my life I've spent watching back footage of animals in such abject suffering. Half their skulls missing while their flockmates are pecking the last shreds of life out of their body, and no one's coming to save them. When you have seen that much suffering, it's not that you become desensitized, but you do feel like, the greater good sometimes really is the ultimate objective. And if we can help spare, 100,000 birds from enduring that with this campaign, then, obviously I'm not the goat, but for me, I think that is a trade-off worth taking.
Where does the assumption come from that they can spare? And this, I understand that the word spare is to prevent slaughter or even to prevent breeding. So I don't know if we can say 100,000. I don't know if we can say one. I don't know.
Yeah. I just want to re-echo that. I think
Sorry,
often...
Minil, go on. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm just saying it's their bet, isn't it? This is what they're betting on. That they're betting on that this sacrifice, essentially, isn't it? This is what they're doing. They're sacrificing the animals in the now, for the potential benefit of the animals in the future. But again, it's a lot of unknowns, as we've.
Yeah.
And I'll just add that they're sacrificing the animals in the now, and assuming that this method is better than getting donations without sacrificing animals. So they'll need to have some amazing data, because I would not accept the same thing in humans.
Yeah.
Sort of the utilitarian kind of way of thinking can be characterized as very kind of cold and calculated, and that's partly on us because we like to talk in spreadsheets and do that sort of stuff, right? I think that stuff is important, but I think for a lot of us, certainly for me and I think Tony as well, underneath that sits a real emotional drive to say I can, although the animal I can see is in suffering, I know and feel that there are many, many more animals that in that same situation and will be next year and the year after as well, unless we do something about it. And as much as we might love and care about that one animal, I don't see a reason not to love and care about those animals. I can't see any less than that. And I'm not always perfect at that. Like I care about my own cats more than I care about other people's animals, right? But I do try and live up to that value, and I do also feel that value. And I think that fundamentally that's what motivates a lot of the work. That's certainly motivates why I got into doing this in the first place, right? Is feeling that in as much as I care about one animal, like I care about them all and want them all to have better lives. And so it really does, like it really is real animals that we're trying to help, and helping more really is a big difference for each of those individuals that you could theoretically go and meet and would feel that way about each of them individually.
And I think there's another point here, which is this criticism is a bit unfairly.
Go on.
He was talking as if it's given that one animal will save all these animals, when it's completely, we don't know, and it could even result in even more animals violated in the future.
Yeah, that would be my intuition, like immediate future and far future. But there's another thing that I wanted to address, right? Like, so when I went through their, like some of the charities on their site, which, spoiler alert, there's something coming up to that, childlike, the charities were like getting commitments on increasing welfare from like McDonald's and some other companies. And the commitment, like future commitments, which we know that companies don't necessarily withhold. So it's like really, really, really lots, like guess upon guess upon guess that somewhere in the future welfare will increase, and therefore a number of individuals will decrease. Which, look, if we had some kind of data on it, I would say, yeah, this campaign would be okay without the rights violations, immediate rights violations, obviously, because there are so many ways to do this, without sacrificing the goat and the several other animals, by the way, that JJ the lion ate on that day. Yeah, I would say, like, okay, if we have like empirical data that this will indeed, the increase of welfare will indeed occur, and that occurrence will indeed decrease rights violations, which I'm not sure. I think we have the data to the opposite, kind of, because lately in the US there was a huge increase of like the price of eggs, and lately, not as far into the past, increased the price of beef, and yet that didn't decrease the sales to a significant degree. So I don't know. I was following it relatively closely. So
during my talk with Chris mentioned that the elasticity of I think it was the supply curve is different, or the demand. No, the elasticity of the demand curve is different based on for different type of chicken eggs. But so.
And by the way, the number of quote unquote beef animals who are bred into existence did decrease during this like crisis in the US, but they are now rebuilding the stock. So I don't know, like, did this something non-vegan that happened in the world, in the financial world, actually decrease the number of animals being bred into existence? How do you even calculate that? Because the farmers decreased their stock, that's how they talk, by sending a bunch of animals, including breeding animals, into slaughter. But now they are increasing their stock because everything bounced back. So
I'll just quickly ask Manil, how much longer can you go for? Because I know we've been going for more than an hour.
As in, at some point, I'm going to get up and make a snack because I'm hungry. But yeah, keep going.
no problem.
Cool.
When actually this is something that many groups do in different ways. So, when I was at Veganuary, one of the problems we recognized was that, people seem to be increasingly giving up eating beef, red meat, because they care about the environment, but that is leading to an increase in their consumption of chicken and fish, who we know suffer more because the conditions are much more intensive. There's greater numbers of them involved. So we had a big focus, like twice a year, we ran campaigns specifically focused on trying to convince people to stop eating chickens, and then another campaign specifically on fish. And you could argue that when we're doing that, we could be ignoring an easy, the low-hanging fruit, where if we just said, cows are great, pigs are adorable, please don't eat them, we could save a couple more cows and pigs and let them keep eating the chicken and fish, because that's a big, harder ask to make. But we felt that's not a justifiable trade-off. More animals will die if we ignore the fact that by focusing on the cute, species, they're just going to eat more of the other ones. So all groups sort of make these trade-offs regularly.
Yeah, that's a really fair point. There's a lot more trade-offs than perhaps people tend to think about or even notice in their own work as well. And yeah, I agree with what you've both said about the scale thing. I mean, for me, I always think about that neglective scale study with the birds in oil, and how many birds would you save from the oil, right? Where people give the same amount to save 200 birds as they would to save 20,000 birds. And the point of that study is meant to be that's like a bug, not a feature of our psychology, right? We actually should be 100 times more concerned about 20,000 birds than we would be about 200 birds. But we sort of fail to do so just because our emotional response doesn't scale in that way. But that's not meant to be. It's a bug, not a feature, right? And so do things like the single identifiable victim effect, right, where people become less likely to give to a group of children as opposed to one child and stuff like this. Yeah, I'm definitely in line with the utilitarian thinking on these kind of trade-offs, and I think in most cases where people's inclinations to disagree with that, my thought is, well, you're just not like appropriately scaling for the number on the other side, right? But there you go. I guess people have different.
Again, this is like the trolley problem was created here. It's not like one or the other. So I don't know. It's like, Chris, that seems to be like a point beside the point.
Questions on that, so I'm sure people can duke that out in the comments. So one thing I've become sensitive to is the impact of the campaign on the Veganuary organisation, and I think that you guys had probably hoped that they would take it as an opportunity, but in fact they were more upset than perhaps you anticipated. What's your message to the team at Veganuary and to the movement more broadly?
Yeah, so I think there are two kind of parts to this. I want to speak directly to kind of message for the people at Veganuary, but also I think sort of sitting behind this is a question about communication between us and Veganuary. So I'll kind of, if you like, I'll address both of those.
Here come the failures.
I think the first thing is to say that we understand that many of the staff and people at Veganuary, supporters of Veganuary, people associated with Veganuary felt caught off guard by what appeared to them to be an attack on their work, and that many people felt.
Can you imagine, guys? It appeared to them that it was attack on their work when the campaign was called Forget Veganuary. Can you imagine, guys? I bet, Manil, if I made a campaign, fuck Manil, you wouldn't take it personally. I don't know.
This is what I mean about it being a bit naive, where they said, or we didn't, when you said they didn't expect the blowback to be negative. Is this what we're getting at now? Them saying they didn't expect it. Yeah, this was
deeply demotivating, and there's almost a sense of kind of betrayal from this coming from another animal organization. And we are really sorry for those people that was the effect of our campaign. It certainly wasn't our intent, but nonetheless, we live in a world of consequences, and that was a consequence. And so we're sorry that we caused people to feel that way. We want to acknowledge that many people have been, as Tony has been in this movement for 30 years, some people for longer, working every day, sometimes burning themselves out to try to forward the cause of animals, whether that's through vegan activism, whether that's through whatever, working on a sanctuary, whatever particular part of our movement, which is very diverse and wide, that they've been doing, and that many of those people would have felt that they've been dealing with pushback and ridicule from sort of the general public for a really long time, and many people will have seen what our campaign and felt that this was like, now they're even getting it in the neck from other people in the movement, and that can really feel like a gut punch.
Pat, you seem like you want to say something.
Tom was mentioning that Tony's been in the movement for 30 years. Do you know why she supports animal farming through her consumption? Because as I understand, she's not vegan, right?
I'll spoil it, I guess. At some point, she says that she's an imperfect vegan, but she doesn't extrapolate on that. She doesn't say what is imperfect about her consumption.
And so again, we acknowledge that. Again, that wasn't our intent, but we are sorry that it came across that way to people. I guess one of the things we want to say is like we appreciate that we have different disagreements about what the most effective ways to help animals are, where we should be putting our time, money, resources, etc. We very much acknowledge that everyone is pushing for the same goal, which is to help animals and be free of suffering and to end the abuse and suffering of animals in factory farms and indeed our wider society. So we just wanted to really underline that we are sorry for the fact that we've caused, and
so just like to make that point, right? So Tom is talking about the end of suffering. So he is holding an abolitionist stance. So he is working towards that. I just want to make it clear that the welfare campaign is not for the welfare's sake, right? Because I want to be charitable towards them. It is for the abolition. It's just like the assumed abolition is a bit naive, in my opinion, but I don't know. maybe if we had empirics. Yeah, Pat.
Okay. So he said factory farming.
No,
Would
I
you
think
say
he
just
said
used
he said
wider as
suffering.
well.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
I think
in
so.
wider use.
factory farming and then like
He
wider?
mentioned factory first because obviously that's what this campaign is focusing on. But then he said, and indeed in wider society as well. And I think that probably extends to everything because wider society would mean it's animal abuse in general. So I think I agree. His intentions are pure with this. Like I don't want to seem like his intentions are not pure. They are, from what he's saying and everything. He seems like he's actually deeply cares about this. So yeah.
Yeah.
We also did not intend to disparage people to make them feel disheartened. On the specifically on the communication point, so Veganuary and we have both put out statements. We don't consider those statements to contradict each other. I know that Veganuary have told us that they also don't consider those statements to be contradictory of each other. I won't probably go through kind of the blow by blow unless you want me to, but nonetheless to say we roped their CEO, Wendy Matthews, in from an early stage in the campaign, and we've kept them up to date. We made some mistakes in terms of under-communicating on some specific things, but and we have a EA forum post which goes through this in kind of a lot of detail that people can read, where we point out specifically where we think we went wrong and what we've done as an organization to try to fix that for the future. But we tried to imperfectly do our best to keep them up to date and be as communicative as we could on the campaign.
So it's again a failed brief. Basically, the communication that they sent didn't, in fact, describe what kind of campaign they're going to do. And if they were actually planning the way Chris was insinuating in the debate, that, or like before the debate as well, like Chris was insinuating that Veganuary could have blown back and got some of the momentum from this feud as well, which I agree with. Feuds create drama, create interest, create media. But like in that case, I would have communicated exactly what we're going to do, when we're going to execute it, and I would have done it months in advance so that people are created, and I would have gotten their permission to do this, right? If the organization is not willing to engage in this kind of feud, then you're shooting them in the fucking head, right? So I don't know.
As we went through. And I think we've improved that even as the campaign's gone on. We've got better at that. We've responded to criticisms from the wider movement and also points from Veganuary to change certain things about the campaign as we've moved forward to try and kind of shear off some of maybe the rougher edges of it as well.
Oh, rougher edges. Oh, forget Veganuary. Oh, no. Like...
I don't know if Tony wants to add anything in, because obviously you have a pre-existing relationship with the Veganuary folk as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I love Veganuary as an organization, and I'm super proud of the time that I was there. And I think that they do important work raising awareness of factory farming and alternative proteins. And, they have changed the conversation about veganism in the UK by making it okay just to try it. It doesn't have to become your identity. And I know that everyone who works there genuinely believes any change people make for animals is a positive thing. No one there thinks you have to go vegan or, you're doing nothing to help animals. Everyone there believes that welfare improvements are an advancement. People just reducing their meat consumption is an advancement. And, they're all incredibly wonderful, compassionate people. And so certainly our intention was never to bring any sort of stress into their lives unnecessarily. And also from my time at Veganuary, I know that the media was increasingly less interested in our side of, advocacy. And it was getting more and more difficult to get Veganuary into, big news pieces in the UK. And they were putting a lot more, anti-vegan messaging out during that crucial time of year. So I genuinely believe that this would be an opportunity for Veganuary to put forward.
Go on, Manil.
Anti-vegan headlines, yeah, that's they run them all the time. I'm just going to read two of the headlines, right? The Veganuary champion quits to run meat-eating campaign. Tony Vanelli claims vegan dogma is failing to tackle cruelty to animals. That was the Telegraph. And then GB News ran with former Veganuary cheerleader quits to run meat-eating campaign after decades combating animal cruelty. Like, those are just two of the headlines, right?
Mm-hmm.
She's adding to that damage. Like, I'm hoping she comments on that, or I'm hoping she can see that. Like, this whole thing about trying to get Veganuary in the papers. I mean, what's she trying to say here? Like, oh, veganism has been being bashed in the media. Veganism being bashed in the media. Let's contribute to that. That's essentially what's happened with this campaign. Like, say no to Veganuary was their campaign as well. What does she expect? Like, you're just adding to it. Like,
Yeah, I think the expectation is, and I think she will say it later, that they were trying to use the momentum of the anti-veganism to produce donations.
yeah, okay.
It's all in the wording, I suppose.
Forward a pro argument, like this group, someone who actually used to work for you is saying this might not be the best way to help animals, or this isn't necessarily the only way to help animals. That's a great opportunity to then say, no, this is why, it's a great opportunity to help animals and your health and the planet. There's such a broad argument that could be put forward on their side in response to it. Now, of course, the media doesn't always work like that. It doesn't always give people, fair time to respond and put together a statement. But certainly, it presents an opportunity, a potential opportunity for that was becoming increasingly less available to Veganuary because the media was just less interested in talking about it.
Yeah, that's interesting. Well, I'm sure that the team at Veganuary are really going to appreciate all of the kind of things that you've both said about them, and I'm very pleased to have heard leaders on both sides of this apparent divide saying, no beef intended, so to speak. I'm sure that they're really going to appreciate that. So yeah, thank you for sharing that. And I hear what you're saying as well about creating an opportunity to make the case. And I think, well, yes, it's certainly in vegan circles there has been a lot of people wanting to vociferously make that case, and there has been genuinely, as you said, a lot of good discourse and new kind of scrutiny brought to this question and points made on one side and the other. And I hope that the net effect is going to be a good one. Obviously. So, you mentioned the media coverage, and obviously the press coverage really focused on the meat-eating part of the campaign and not really on the donations so much. What did you guys think of the press coverage, or what have you thought of the press coverage that's been around so far?
I think we should learn from that and not continue with this nonsense. We known this before, that when you tell people eat as much meat as you want, but also donate, they're more likely to do the former and not the latter. And the media obviously are obliged as well. Yeah, I would have done that as well.
I mean, I guess certainly from the Telegraph.
Oh, sorry, Manil, go on.
I say, I mean, as soon as you tell people that, in these both these articles that it's that she's quit Veganuary, essentially you're telling everyone that this is the other part of this subheading. The vegan ideology is not only unhelpful but actually damaging to the fundamental goal of reducing animal suffering. Brilliant. That's a quote from her. That's brilliant.
Yeah, just to put the contrast, imagine if we said that with human rights, what was it, like human rights ideology is was it detrimental, you said?
Damaging or detrimental to the cause or to reduce animal suffering.
Yeah, so human rights is detrimental to the goal of reducing human suffering.
Jesus Christ. Okay, let's continue.
It is what I expected. They have had a very overt anti-vegan stance. Their editorial policy has been, openly anti-vegan for a few years now.
I've been in this situation as well, so it could be that Tony didn't say all of those things that were just read into, right? I've been misquoted by media as well, once or twice. And so I'm hoping that that's what happened, that she was just grossly misquoted, that the person that was interviewing her brought his own or her own ideas about these things and didn't actually listen to her words. Who knows, right? Like, who knows what happened?
Knew that, that its story would interest them. It would be
Sorry? It's in quotation marks, so I'm assuming they're directly quoting either something she said or something that she's written. Usually when you give a media piece, people, if they're quoting you directly, they will use quotation marks. But you're right, like anyone could write anything these days, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't completely overlooked, but it also just made people think. And that's kind of the starting point. Like, oh, okay, I do care about factory farming, like almost giving them permission to admit that.
Okay,
well, shit. I've done it. I think it was here.
Kind of things that you've both said about them. And
sorry.
What do you guys think of the press?
Almost giving them permission to admit that they care about factory farming. Here's someone who has spent 30 years of her life telling people to go vegan, who's saying, actually, you don't have to go vegan to care about animals and to do something to help them. So even if it's just flipping that switch in their brain, and they start seeing other opportunities for where they can make a difference for factory farmed animals, that's great. The GB News.
And they were thinking that this wouldn't blow back at veganism.
Again, to be charitable, though, they're trying to say that these are people that would never consider veganism. So, like, the people that read the Telegraph are usually, and the editors of the Telegraph actually said, are in that mindset. They're very anti-vegan anyway. Like, again, to be still man the position, it's kind of, they are trying to appeal to a very niche subset of people who vehemently anti-vegan, don't want to listen to the vegan message, don't want to listen to anything that's related to this, but on the face of it, when asked about animal farming and things like that, will still admit that they think it's shit what happens to animals. And there are a lot of people like that. Like I work with people like that. Like I see them every day. I treat them as well as a doctor, right? There's a lot of people. England as a nation is famous for being animal lovers. Yeah, it usually means cats and dogs, but they have this idyllic view of what happens on farms as well. They'll, even the way we advertise meat and stuff in this country, everyone cares about the pigs and the cows looking all happy and stuff like that. So this is a thing that people do genuinely. I say queer in quotation marks because they care, but then what scale of caring is it? Do you care enough to actually change your lifestyle and habits? Well, probably not, right? But they, on the face of it, deep down, they probably do care a bit enough to hear her message, which is this watered down ethics washing message, which is palatable for them. So again, being charitable, I get what she's trying to say, but I just think, again, like as we've all said, this is hedging this bet that they are going to donate, going to keep donating, and these donations are going to lead to some outcome that we all would love, which is the end of animal farming.
Yeah, and to add to that, it's not as if like this was like some kind of a precision targeting into private Facebook groups or something like that. This is nationwide, worldwide, I would claim, right? And so it would meet. There is another like assumption there that more people are like the person that you are describing, Manil, and not like the person that I'm describing. And okay, we can duke it out or something, right? But there are no statistics on this. So I don't know.
News interview, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, that's precisely the media coverage we were hoping to get from this campaign. Like also a very overt anti-vegan stance, their editorial stance, very anti-vegan. But basically, by the end of the interview, he was promoting donating to offset meat consumption, because he is precisely the audience we're trying to reach. Like, as he said, I'm never going to stop eating meat, but I don't want those animals to be treated badly. And I'm willing to donate to, help change the way these animals are treated. And that's exactly the message that we were trying to get out there. So, yeah, I think that proves that there's an audience receptive to this message.
Yeah, I second everything that Tony. Just wanted to add a little bit of additional context on our strategy. So, because I think this is something we were to communicate at the time, but it's important to understand what we were doing and what the things we were doing. So, we were never particularly individual pieces of kind of print media, so like articles online, to drive significant numbers of donations. In the past, this has never been a big donation driver for us. There are lots of reasons to expect that like articles wouldn't be great at that. What we really wanted to do was part of the campaign was to see if we could get the idea of offsetting onto TV, if we could get people to do that. And what we were envisaging is, as Tony says, like the TV spot that's much more balanced, much more kind of, our ideal TV piece would have had somebody from Veganuary and somebody from us, and we'd be kind of like putting both sides of the story. And so as an audience member, you'd get really both sides. The purpose of the piece was really to try to give us a jumping point into that. And so that piece had to be a bit spicy, because otherwise it wouldn't be interesting to a producer. They wouldn't pick it up if they didn't feel that there was.
So I read this to be to actually like to fuck our charitability in the noggin, because this seems to be that Tony, to indicate that Tony did say all of those things because the article had to be spicy in order to be picked up by the TV media. So maybe I'm reading too much into this, but
like they could get an interesting debate out of it. And then we would be able to like sort of, go on. The idea was we would try and then go on and everyone would be agreeing that factory farming is a bad thing and just talking about different ways to deal with that. So that was what we were trying to make happen. And we were going to try to see if we could get that to happen. So I think that's important context when people are looking at that Telegraph piece and going, oh, like that's never going to raise donations. Like we didn't particularly expect it to. It was part of a broader strategy that we were able to secure the GB News piece. There are, we toned down our campaign over time. And so like maybe.
Yeah, Pat.
I just had that. Lewis Bollard, I think that's his name. Correct me if I'm wrong, if you've heard of him. But I think he raised 2 million just by appearing on podcasts for animal advocacy organizations. So that's just a point which came to my head, which I've not mentioned before. So I thought I'd get it out there. No rights, no direct rights violations for that. Just appearing on the podcast. So another idea I had was using that £18,000 to promote different podcast appearances, maybe get someone on these big podcasts such as, Diary of a CEO, or just put a little advertise. I've seen them appear on some YouTube videos, Farmkind. So
Yeah, but
just use that money.
to be fair, you do need to have like a certain personality to go on one of those podcasts. And I'm not sure if Farmkind has one of those personalities. Like maybe that's also one of their goals in the end. If Tony says enough outrageous shit, maybe Tony can get into those podcasts and get more donations. I'm not sure. It's again hedging the bet.
Yeah, even just alternatively, using all of that 18K just into big podcasts where it appears as a pop-up, because that's how I saw in the video. It was a part of, I think it was a right-wing podcast talking about factory farming, and at that point, Farmkind comes up, and you can click on the link.
Oh, that's interesting. So you're just like paying for ad pop-up. All right.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Well, I think
Yeah,
okay.
We'll let the
We didn't
we'll
get
let
as
the
far,
dog
like,
out.
we didn't get as
Still
far
here.
Yeah, no problem.
as we'd like, but like that was kind of where we did that. But also, we were surprised, frankly, given the results that the campaign achieved in terms of media, as we didn't hit like our aim goal of that kind of debate on a really big channel. We were quite surprised about how much the campaign did generate in donations, which I think suggests that like, and I would count myself in this group, like we shouldn't necessarily just assume that we can look at a piece of media and be like, I know how many donations that will get. So our campaign, I'll give you exclusive, Chris, on the. So currently we think that our estimate, so it's a little bit hard to attribute donations through our platform because lots of things come in and we're trying to work out exactly where they came from. So our estimate on the most conservative end, we estimate the campaign raised $16,700, and on the more relaxed kind of attribution of where donations came from, $59,300. So like that, we don't think that that's like overall a really positive result in the sense of we try and raise more money than that. You know, we our December campaigns from, for example, our YouTube ads and things like this raised a lot more money than this. But for those pieces of coverage to generate that, I think that's actually a surprisingly good result. It's better than I would have thought that would have been. And I think that that's an important piece of kind of context when anyone is looking at these and thinking about like how well was this campaign executed. And
So they were going into this campaign thinking they're gonna lose on it, right? Basically, because the non-lax, they might have, right? Because the conservative estimate is 16,700, which is less of what they spent on the campaign, right? So, but they were surprised by that as well. So they're going in thinking they're gonna spend this money and not get as many donations at all, right? And so now the question is, are they just working to get their paycheck? Because some of those estimations of expenditure is their paychecks. So I'm just not.
Yeah, when I was speaking with Chris sort of told me that they think this was the best method out over all other methods. Their internal whatever they've done, maybe if they've done some sort. Well, I don't think they have done some sort of analysis compared to other methods. But did he mention that they've not yet tallied up the donations from ads? Did I hear that correct? Or
Let me go back a little bit.
came from $59,300. So like that, we don't think that that's like overall a really positive result in the sense of we try and raise more money than that. You know, we our December campaigns from, for example, our YouTube ads and things like this raised a lot more money than this. But for for those pieces of coverage to generate that, I think.
So he's saying in his December, is that his campaigns prior to the Forget Veganuary campaign raised more money? So then here, yeah.
I think that's actually a surprisingly good result. It's better than I would have thought that would have been. And I think that that's an important piece of kind of context when anyone is looking at these and thinking about like how well was this campaign executed and like whether it was a good idea or not and so forth. And like there are other reasons to still think it's a bad idea or badly executed, right? I'm not saying everyone has to agree with us, but like I think this is an important piece of context.
So we've got a rights violation. Less money raised, which to potentially reduce future farmed animals having their rights violated when they could have donated it in ways which did not violate rights, use the money in ways which did not violate rights. I'm not really understanding.
But it's like,
but
I think it's like worse than that because the amount of failings they are admitting just in this podcast, quote unquote, the amount of failings that they're admitting to in this campaign, and then they're like, oh, you know, like people think women shouldn't have done it. Well, you didn't think it through, did you? What are you eating, Camille? Tell us.
I mean, I think they definitely should have communicated properly with Veganuary. That failing is a big one, because the blowback on the Veganuary campaign is definitely, I mean, I say definitely, we don't have no evidence of it, but I think it's definitely going to be, I say definitely again, people who would have otherwise gone vegan would have seen these headlines. I'm sure of it. Like you said, it wasn't put in like these niche groups, it was put to wider public out there. And that's how even I heard about it. So yeah, I think it could have planned a lot better. And until and the worst part is we're never going to actually see the benefits of this, because this is a huge bet, right? Like we're probably not going to see the benefits of this in our lifetime. And could have done a lot more with the money they had. Yeah, it's just.
Or we'll also see the harms of this in our lifetime as well.
The harms we are seeing, right? The harms we do see, like, because there's obviously animals that are going to be killed.
Even more harms down the line of more people demanding animal products, and then the industry expanding the violation of future sentient animals.
Yeah.
But what are you eating, Manil?
Oats.
Okay.
Oats.
Nice.
I think it's important to put in context of like what.
No, protein oats.
Protein oats.
Yeah.
But yeah,
To move
post, I'll also add that how much do they value the rights violations, you know, because they mentioned, they're gonna, well, Tony mentioned, potentially that these influencers are going to violate animals anyway, so it's okay for them to do, but that should still be included within their campaign, the cost of this violation, which a life for me is, you know, I've got moral rule against violating animals myself, so.
Yeah.
Every organization in a movement does. Like Veganuary didn't try and get national press coverage to directly lead to people signing up to do Veganuary. There's no way of really measuring that, because few papers are going to publish a link and they're not going to publish a bespoke link. But it's just awareness raising of the issues and get people thinking and starting, you know, the change, the paradigm shift in people's minds and across society. And as a movement.
By the way, you can do bespoke links. You can send like a specific bespoke link to one thing that they're trying to do, and then do another bespoke thing to another thing. That is possible, right? Like with a little bit initiative. So I don't know. Like
the more we do that, then it increases the chances that the next time they come across something asking them to sign up for Veganuary, they might do that, or they get a donation ask, you know, for Farmkind, they might do that. But you have to plant the seed.
Yeah, interesting. There's definitely been the seed firmly planted in the movement, and I think that if vegans look at this and say, well, I don't agree with this campaign, but I've been made aware of donating as a very prominent path to making change, I think that's a good thing. So, I mean, are those numbers?
I mean, the fact that it's prominent part is like not proven. Again, it's like all hedges on the fact, on the question whether increase of welfare will decrease rights violations. So I don't know.
For is that like a one-off rating, or is that per year or per month or something else?
Yeah, so that's the total, and people haven't in the end given sort of with all given with that suggested amount. So a lot of people have like calculated maybe like a period of time and then donated as a one-off or something like this. We found people using our calculator to do things like try and work out how much they'll eat for the rest of their lives and just give it all in one go and things like this. So that doesn't represent. You couldn't divide that number by 15 and come to the total number of donors. There's far fewer donors than that would be from this campaign.
Okay, fair enough. And did you have? So yeah, I mean, I've described this as a bit of moral entrepreneurship, where you're kind of taking a risk here, and there is a chance that it pays off and yields very, very good results. But there's a chance that it doesn't, in which case it's very, sort of catastrophic for Farmkind in a way, or it seems.
Can you imagine being the victim of somebody's calculation like that? Jesus Christ! Pat,
yeah. I disagree. It's not more into entrepreneurships, because you don't know other methods, how many, how much money they could raise, and we've seen that with their ads, they can raise more money than violating animals.
Yeah,
to be that it could be. Did you all have a target for fundraising through this campaign, and how are you feeling relative to that?
Yeah, so as I say, we kind of main goal was to explore a new channel, and we definitely saw this as kind of an exploratory thing, and so we didn't set our targets in terms of like, oh, we should raise this amount of money, because given the level of uncertainty, and we've never done a TV piece before, for example, we have done relatively little on our offset calculator, and so we didn't have the information to like set reasonable goals for like an amount of money raised. Our goal was instead to achieve an output, which is aim for this TV slot, and then be able to say like, okay, does that produce like a large number of counterfactual donations? Because that was a more, given the level of like information we have at the moment, that was a more appropriate kind of way to structure our goals from this campaign. So the goal was raising. We would judge the success in terms of raising donations, but we're looking at, in terms of like what we're trying to achieve here, we're looking at specific outputs and seeing whether those generated donations or not. So when we do our other work where we've done it more before, for example, when we're doing our paid work, we have very concrete goals around like, okay, this needs to hit like a certain number of donations per view and things like this in order to be something we want to keep doing. But for something more exploratory like this, it doesn't really make sense to set those kinds of like specific monetary goals.
Yeah, Pat, go on. We can't hear you.
You're on mute. Oh, your mic's gone.
Yeah, my mic's. Yeah, we can't hear you. I'm so sorry, Pat. Try maybe disconnecting the Yeti. Maybe we can hear you through a different mic. No. Oh, now it's good. Yeah.
My Yeti disconnected, but I was just gonna say the word exploratory, that sort of winds me up when it comes to do with rights violations, you know.
Yeah, we're exploring paying for a whole goat to be slaughtered. Listen, guys, it's a new wave of veganism.
Okay, interesting. And how do you feel that the campaign was received? Well, we spoke about like it's important to have a messenger who is not describing themselves as a vegan or something like that, right? To have the messenger be meat eaters. How do you feel that the campaign was received broadly amongst the target audience, or has been received so far, I guess?
Oh, I mean, from the limited engagement that I've had on social media and with the media, it's been split. There have still been people who have said, you know.
Yeah, Pat.
Glad Chris mentioned that it's important to have someone promoting this who's not vegan. For 18k, they could have got paid a bigger influencer than JJ the Lion. I'm sure. My intuition says that, to go to a restaurant or do a challenge where he's under the impression that it's animals, and then it's revealed secretly that it's plant-based. Because 18k, that can go a long way for a single stint for someone, a single like event.
I mean, I'm not thinking about like a specific thing, but they definitely could have paid, for instance, Mike Israel to do a piece who's like, he's genuinely a little bit sympathetic to the vegan position, right? He could have done something like one of his reactions to something like that. Yeah. And that channel has like 3 million viewers, right? And like plenty of exposure to gym bros, the people who she's specifically talking about, right?
who've just used it as an opportunity to criticize veganism and say they're never going to go vegan. So clearly, just reading headlines and reacting with their standard patent response and not actually engaging with the content to see what was being said. But then there have been lots of comments from people saying, yeah, this is a campaign I can actually get behind. This is something that I feel is doable for me. This is actually realistic. In fact, there's an excellent op-ed in the Evening Standard. She didn't speak to us at all, but she was talking about, oh, January again, everyone's asking us to stop drinking and stop eating meat. And, I'm just so bored of it all. And, these things aren't achievable for most people. It's setting people up for failure. And
yeah, so like the campaign basically the response, the media response to the campaign is like, fuck all of that shit, eat and drink whatever you want. Stop feeling guilty during January where you usually say, oh, at least I'm gonna try to do something. Stop. No. Do whatever the fuck you want. And maybe give $23 to this charity. Jesus Christ.
Then she mentioned our campaign and actually ended with a really positive comment saying, I can help animals without having to change my diet. Sign me up. This is a campaign I can get behind. So I think to that type of individual, it did have appeal and it resonated.
Fair enough. Yeah. Okay. Well, it's good to know that there are some people who I can totally see thinking that you need that very strong signaling and assurance that this is not about asking you to go vegan, because exactly as you say, you will lose a lot of people very quickly if you kind of give a hint that that's the case. I want to ask a bit about how you have been dealing with the reaction from within the movement. I've described it as you guys have made yourselves into the wasp cake that can
I'll just add
sort
quickly.
of attract a lot of hate.
Pat.
I'm not convinced that you need to pay for people to consume animal products to convince people that the campaign is not a vegan campaign.
Yeah. I'm not convinced either. You can do it in other ways, 100%. Just putting on vegan to talk about how you can give to charity, to even to use the same fucking language, right? But just don't slaughter the goat, right? So silly, so fucking silly.
But is hopefully functioning to make sure that everybody else in the movement is having a better time in terms of having more funding. how have you been dealing with the reaction from within the movement?
I mean, Tom, I don't know if you want to address Farmkind in general, and then I can address the personal abuse.
Sure. Yeah. So, we were, I guess, we were comfortable with people in the movement not being happy with us as an organization. One of the things when we started Farmkind, one of the kind of reasons that we thought it was worth setting up a new organization rather than, for example, existing organizations just having more resources to do more fundraising, was that we could take risks that more established organizations couldn't because they had more to lose. It was the case until like pretty recently that Farmkind was just like so we've only been going since 2024. We have been for most of that time small enough that it really kind of wouldn't make too much of a difference whether we carried on or not. And so that's a great opportunity to like take some risks and do some things where if it goes wrong, then like we're the only ones who take the take the negative consequences of that. Ultimately, the movement overall can carry on. And so that was definitely something we kind of was in our minds when we started. I think one of the things we got wrong with this campaign and hold our hands up to is we didn't anticipate that some people would see our campaign as a reflection on the charities, for example, that we recommend. So I want to just take the opportunity to emphasize that none of the charities that we recommend were sort of on board with this campaign before we started, that they don't, just because we endorse their work doesn't mean that they endorse our work. And that they basically.
Did you guys understand what he just said? I'll just like summarize it, Minil. They just said basically that the charities that they promoted on the Forget Veganuary campaign, with the Forget Veganuary campaign, weren't aware of the campaign, nor did they sign off on it. You're muted.
I was going to say, like, that's why I said play it back. I can't. Did he misspeak?
No.
Exactly as you say, you will lose people.
Sorry, go on.
We were comfortable with people in the movement.
I think I've gone
not
too far.
Being
Very
it
good.
really kind of wouldn't make too much of a difference whether we carried on or not. And so that's a great opportunity to like take some risks and do some things where if it goes wrong, then like we're the only ones who take the take the negative consequences of that. Ultimately, the movement overall can carry on. And so that was definitely something we kind of was in our minds when we started. I think one of the things we got wrong with this campaign and hold our hands up to is we didn't anticipate that some people would see our campaign as a reflection on the charities, for example, that we recommend. So I want to just take the opportunity to emphasize that none of the charities that we recommend were sort of on board with this campaign before we started, that they don't, just because we endorse their work doesn't mean that they endorse our work. And that they basically we did this off our own initiative without their without their sort of blessing or anything of that nature as well.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Why?
I don't know. It's so childlike. Listen, guys, we're going to take risks because we're going to do this thing, fantastic thing. We're going to increase rights violations, including slaughtering goat by ourselves, like basically, right? Basically by their hands, by their money. And we're going to promote you guys on that site. We're not going to tell you that, so...
Yeah, I mean, that's crazy. Like, I mean, presumably, like, if you were some of these charities, you would absolutely hate the association. Like, surely you'd get their permission beforehand as well, just because of the association and like all the negative blowback that came from vegans as well. Because they promote, like, I think the Humane League and a few other things, right, on their
Yeah. They promote like actual vegan initiatives and not welfare initiatives. Although the Humane League probably does quite a lot of welfare, but they're like vegan.
Yeah, there's a lot of welfare stuff. Again, I see a place for welfare, by the way, in this world.
Same.
Because this world is full of people who absolutely don't care about animals and don't care about their welfare at all. And there is a place to try and make what little miserable lives that these animals have at least a little less miserable, if that makes sense to you guys. And I think most people would agree that's a reasonable position to hold, even though we say that we're anti-welfare. Like I'm an anti-welfare vegan. I don't want to just look after them and then slaughter them. We want to end that, but we're not in that kind of world. But yeah, these charities. I mean, I can't believe that they didn't speak to them beforehand and say, "Yeah, we're gonna do this campaign. What do you guys think? Do you want to be part of it?" It just makes no sense, and I'm surprised that you're allowed to do that as well. But anyway.
Yeah, unclear. But it just like seems like such a failure. Like, how the fuck are you guys getting paid for this? For real, for real.
And I think had we done it again, we would have made that clearer up front, because we really, like, what would have been a really big disaster from this campaign is if it had negatively affected the work of these amazing charities.
Yeah, and then, obviously I've received an absolute ton of personal abuse and comments.
By the way, narc alert, I think Tony's been really victimizing herself here.
And, really, just a ton of vitriol online, personal emails, messages from people who I haven't spoke to in probably a decade, suddenly demanding to know what my current diet is. It's nice to know they're all very concerned about me now. And I mean, I anticipate.
No, shut the fuck up. They're not concerned about you. They're just like questioning whether your vegan morals are still in place when you say shit like, "Our veganism has failed, let's do something else."
A lot of it.
Alternatively,
I've been involved in the movement.
Maybe they're just asking, they want to offer her advice and help, nutrition advice. That could be another alternative.
No,
I
there
think
probably
people
was some
also-
vitriol, yeah.
People want to know, like, if she's still vegan or not. Like, if you're gonna go on GB News and Telegraph and say shit against Veganuary and say that you can carry on eating meat, and I think, if you've been in the animal rights movement for 35 years, been a vegan for however long she's been vegan, I would definitely want to know. Like, I saw her name pop up on the news, and if I haven't talked to her in 10 years, I'd be like, yo, what's going on? Are you still vegan? Are you an anti-vegan now? Is this what this is? I would definitely ask her. So anyway, I think she's making tongue-in-cheek comments saying that, where she's saying, oh, they're asking, suddenly want to know how I am and stuff. That's tongue-in-cheek. But at the end of the day, she says herself that she anticipated this. So I'm interested to see, like, what her reaction to it. Like, I don't condone sending people hate messages and stuff like that. I think it's counterproductive. It's not good for the movement. It's not good for veganism. A lot of vegans do it, and it's, I don't know, who are you helping when you tell people that I wish you die and stuff like that, calling people a murderer? Like, it's you will turn people away from veganism when you do that, and that's my position. And I don't care if you think that I'm being an apologist or whatever. You have to use every tool in your arsenal to get people to consider animals, and the way you convey yourself and portray yourself as a human being and as a vegan matters, because how you portray yourself is how people will see veganism and see vegans, and that is just a fact of life. I mean, we can, you can. I'm not saying you can't. I'm not like language policing here or tone policing people, and you can swear and be as true to you as you want, but just reflect a little bit and just remember what we are all here fighting for, and that is ultimately animals. And is your action gonna lead to a net positive or net benefit to the animals? And that's. I thought I slip up as well. Like we all do. We all end up abusing meat flakes in the comment section because we're human beings at the end of the day. But I'm saying, like, really finding out, like, if you don't even know this person, finding out what their private email is or where they live or whatever, and then sending them hate mail and hate abuse is just counterproductive, because they're probably going to use it as ammunition to make vegans look bad, which, here she is right now talking about it. So let's see what she says.
Yeah, just like to add one more thing to what you said, I completely agree. And Vegan Gaze does say something wise. The way those people react in Tony's DMs and emails or whatever is by no means an overreaction. It is, in fact, the proper reaction to the shit that she said. It's just that we should be more cognizant about the repercussions of us saying this kind of shit. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Again, you can react and be very angry about this. I'm not saying you can't. You should be. I was pissed off when I saw it. But, I don't even make that much content, and I made a video about it because I was so annoyed, and I found this completely stupid and stuff. But as I said, like, there's levels to it and levels to what you say. Like, I'm talking about, don't send people death threats and don't send things against people's life and stuff like that. It's a bit, that is over the top reaction in any case. Yeah.
Yeah.
Long enough to know that people's emotions run very high, and they genuinely believe that the only way, the best way, to help farmed animals is to get people to change their diet. But I don't believe that. My experience has led me to believe that we can't just keep shouting "go vegan" louder and more often and expect it to magically happen. We need to try new things. We need to take risks. We need to think outside of diet change alone if we genuinely want to reduce animal suffering. And that is what I want to do, and it's what I have always wanted to do. And I've never been afraid of being unpopular to do what I think is going to be the best avenue for animals. Whether that was at one point, back in 1990 when veganism wasn't even a thing, telling people to go vegan, to now saying, actually, you don't have to go vegan to help animals. Like, when the evidence changes, then I believe your strategy should change in the face of that evidence. So it's a risk you take being unpopular.
Yeah, that's really interesting to hear, both on the organizational level and
personally.
Yeah, Pat. Yeah.
I don't think any of us are telling people just tell people go vegan, as a form of advocacy. we use different ways, and we're open to trying different ways that don't have rights violations, you know, in cruelty-free methods. I'm completely open for that.
Yeah, Mel.
Yeah, but I think,
Sorry, go on.
go on. What were you gonna say?
Yeah, I was gonna say that in about a few minutes, she's gonna say something so stupid that I expect another meltdown on myself, because she incredibly mischaracterizes the pushback from the vegan community. So, but we'll get there. Yeah, go on. Mel.
I was gonna say, God, now I forgot now. I forgot what I was gonna say, but yeah.
I was talking about, I mentioned
you-
the Go Vegan campaign. Well, we don't say Go Vegan.
Yeah, sorry, yeah, that was it. So yeah, she's saying that, you know, we're just telling people to go. I get that she's saying that, you know, there's other ways of telling people to, you know, to get to the end goal is what she's trying to say. But I think telling people it's okay to carry on eating meat and then sort of dunk on veganism certainly isn't some maverick amazing way of doing this. Again, intuitively, it doesn't sound like it's a good way to do this. Yeah, like you said, it creates more rights violations, and again, she's hedging this bet that this is going to pay off in the long run. So yeah,
Yeah, and there's like a huge difference between telling people to not go vegan and not telling people to go vegan, right? It's not just semantic. There is a huge difference there. She could have done both. She could have not tell people to go vegan, but also not tell people to not go vegan.
Yeah.
Sort of strategic thinking as Farmkind being a new organisation with sort of nothing to lose in that sense. And then on a personal level, Tony, with perhaps quite a lot to lose in terms of big history in the movement and a lot of friends and contacts. And yeah, it's good to know that you are made of sterner stuff and can take a little bit of that. But nonetheless, yeah, it must have been tough all round. And I'm sure in those early weeks in January, you're thinking, have we really done the wrong thing here? And I'm sure very easy to, you sort of had to follow through to a decent extent to see if it would work, having done the reasoning that there's good reason to think that it was. How do you prepare to resist that, you know, strong feedback? I mean, again, you're expecting it to some extent. Is there anything that you can do to sort of fortify yourself to stick it out to see if it works?
I mean, on a personal level, I mean, I don't engage with social media much anyways, but I certainly made a point through this campaign of just not looking at anything. I, you know, read the articles that came out, but no comments. People trying to message me on social platforms who I had no idea who they were. I did not open their messages.
Well, she's a campaigner who doesn't engage in social media, and she says that she left the vegan bubble. Is she out of her mind, actually? I didn't catch this the first time. She's a campaigner who's not on social media. What the actual fuck? Why should we trust you, Tony?
She probably was. She probably used to be, but I think she's trying to make a point that since this all started, she's come off social media a bit. Which,
no,
yeah,
she said specifically she's not much on social media anyways. And now since this started, she also didn't go on social media purposefully at all.
Yeah,
I don't need to engage with these people. This isn't the audience that I'm looking to speak to. So for me, that helped quite a lot. And the team at Farmkind were also incredibly supportive, and that made a huge difference. And so I had a few very good friends, you know, who I've been campaigning with for years, who also reached out immediately in support. And, you know, that made a huge difference as well.
Yeah. And is there anything that's super interesting to hear? Is there anything on your side, Tom, that you or Aidan have done, or on an organizational level, perhaps, to sort of brace yourselves?
So one of the things we've done since the campaign was launching is we've not said a lot of things publicly, because we've not felt that we've done some interviews. I did the interview with David. We're doing this interview now. We've made a couple of public statements where I think we've said the things we want to say. And in general, I think like we wanted to leave the space then open for people to discuss that with each other and kind of come to their conclusions and so forth. But what we have done is had a lot of one-to-one conversations with people across the movement and across different parts of the movement to kind of get their feedback, to you know, to see where people have felt we could have done things better, or we could still do things better and change things and that sort of thing. But also to just explain why we were doing what we were doing and get a sense of kind of what people thought about this. I think when it comes to kind of the movement overall, I think it's a mixed picture. I think some people have been you know, obviously been very against it. There have also been lots of people who've been really interested in it and thought, if nothing else, that like the attempt to kind of do something new was something that like was interesting and something that they sort of generally support in that sense. So yeah, we've tried to like keep having these conversations, be very open to feedback, to thinking about what we've done, what we're doing, how can we make things better as we go forward with this campaign, as we go forward with future campaigns.
I'll just I'd just like to just really emphasize that after this campaign, even in many years, you won't know the impact on rights violations. You won't know the harm generated. So ultimately, we won't know. Chris mentioned a few minutes ago how if this campaign works. We won't know if it will work because we don't know.
Yeah, there are so many confounders as well, aren't there, Patrick? Like the meat consumption is increasing, generally speaking. There is like the entire non-vegan world has like all these things like bumping into them the entire time, including the meat industry spending billions in order to continue indoctrinating them. So fuck knows, who knows? Like, will they take like the like how would they calculate this with all of those confounders? I don't know. Manil?
As I say, I mean, this campaign came at a time where there's been a huge anti-vegan almost bias in the media and like calculated hit pieces by, dairy and meat-funded sort of influencers and campaigners. So it's just adding more fuel to the fire to create a less vegan world ultimately. Telling people there's another way. And they don't have to go vegan. It's just, it's just adding more to that and turning more people away from it. So that I think there is more damage that's going to have been done to the vegan campaign, whether they choose to see it or admit it or not. Maybe they have admitted and said that's maybe a risk that they took for, frankly, a payoff that we're never going to see really in our lifetime. Yeah.
All of that kind of thing to basically try and make sure that like to the extent that we
And just to reiterate one more time, Pat's point, they could have done the same fucking campaign without increasing rights violations directly. Rah.
make mistakes,
right.
which we did with this campaign.
I'll just like to re-emphasize is that like I support donations as well in cruelty-free ways, and the main things which I'm against about with what Farmkind is doing is their campaign, the misinformation, and the rights violations. Because I'm against misinformation as well, unless there's, somehow like if hypothetically some misinformation would create a vegan world, maybe I'll sign off on that. But generally, I'm against sending out false information.
Yeah.
That we don't make those same mistakes in the future. We'll just make other mistakes instead.
Right. Okay. Well, that's super interesting to hear about, and I'm sure that in these situations, you both mentioned having some supporters reach out as well. I'm sure that in these situations, the haters are much louder than the supporters on some level. But it's good to know that you have had people who understand what you're trying to do and have been supportive. Is there anybody? Well, I guess there's some people who are doing this in public, but probably many more are doing it in private, I imagine. Good to know that there have been, that some people understand what you guys are trying to do. And I mean, I'll just say, I think that the main thing, Tony, what
I'm
going to
skip Chris a little bit.
You're both trying
actually going to produce good results for animals, and that advocating a more well-first approach was not a bad thing for animals. It wasn't a message that at that time in my life I felt comfortable being the face of. As the head of an organization and the media spokesperson, I didn't want to have to go on national television and say, well, just treat chickens nicer and everything's okay. So I've left other jobs in the past because I could no longer be that face of that message, and now over time I've actually realized that is a message I'm much more comfortable with, because I just want to see fewer animals suffering in factory farms in the way that they do now.
I might have skipped way too much. Let me see one sec. That I didn't skip anything of importance.
Like keep having these conversations, be very open to feedback, to thinking about what we've done, what we're doing, how can we make things better as we go forward in this campaign.
some people understand what you guys are trying to do. And I mean, I'll just say, I think that the main strategy.
Sorry. I'm going to stop playing with it.
There are some people who are typically outside the movement who are just like very cynical and say, well, this lady used to be paid by the Veganuary organization, now she's getting paid by this other organization, and so she's just sort of a mercenary or whatever. And I want to say to them, like, you're working for animal charities, right? It's not exactly a gold mine, one would think.
No, quite. I mean, I took a pay cut to come to Farmkind from Veganuary, where it was an established organization and I was in a very high level position there after 6 years. But that's, it shouldn't need saying, but that's never been a motivating factor for me. I've done grassroots animal rights activism my whole life. I have left other jobs with animal charities when I disagreed with the path that they were taking. And, out of, complete transparency, quite often that was a welfarist approach. Although I didn't disagree that
A little bit over time, so yeah, I appreciate you guys taking the time, and we'll have a little bit of time for you to add on anything else that you might want to say as well. There's been some speculation about whether the people involved in the Farmkind
just
campaign are
skip.
themselves vegan, and I'd say
Skip
this
like 2 minutes.
Same diet I've had for many years now, which I am an imperfect vegan. When I was younger, I was a lot stricter than I am now, but over time, you begin to realize that sometimes, well, in an imperfect world, it's impossible to be perfect, and you stop beating yourself up about it.
And by the way, Tom did during the skip. Tom did say that he's vegan, and she says that she's an imperfect vegan, whatever the fuck that means. Whatever.
Yeah. Okay. That's super interesting. And that, by the way, that's
Sorry. Go
Should we
ahead.
go back? Should we go back to hear the bit we missed, or?
Yeah, go to 58 minutes, or just at 58, or just before that.
I'm going to skip his questions at least.
vegan thing, and so you might have a good reason to not want to answer this question either way, really, in my mind. But if you would like to, people will want me to have asked you: Are you both in fact vegan?
My cat's saying so. I am. For the reasons we've discussed, sometimes I think it would be better for Farmkind if I wasn't, but nonetheless, I don't want to lie, and so it is the case that I am vegan, yes.
And I have the same diet I've had for many years now, which I am an imperfect vegan. When I was younger, I was a lot stricter than I am now, but over time, you begin to realize that sometimes, well, in an imperfect world, it's impossible to be perfect, and you stop beating yourself up about it.
Yeah, Pat.
Yeah, I really don't understand what people mean by imperfect vegan.
Vegetarian.
It could be
Vegetarian is
whatever
what
the
it
fuck. Hold on. So here's the thing, right? It could be that she just allows herself the lack of consciousness once in a while to see if the multivitamin that she buys has vegan cholecalciferol or non-vegan cholecalciferol, right? That could be an imperfect vegan, which I can kind of like, okay, whatever. Like it doesn't actually generate rights violations, the non-vegan cholecalciferol. Or she could be like falling on a steak and devouring it once a month. Which one is she? I don't know.
Yeah. Okay, that's super interesting. And that, by the way, that is my thinking in a lot of what I talk about on the channel in terms of Vegan 2.0, going from
Yeah. Also, something which came to my mind post is that by imperfect, she's implying that because I'm against rights violations as a vegan, she's implying that by it in the imperfect world that somehow vegans are supporting rights violations. Because she's saying it's like, I don't know if that's what she meant, that it's impossible to be a perfect vegan, but like
not sure.
for hypocrisy claim, she'll need to show that somehow I'm supporting rights violations through my actions.
Yeah, I don't know. She didn't elaborate, so yeah.
Animal exploitation insofar as practical and possible to focus on preventing exploitation as efficiently as effectively as possible. I think there are many more animals that can be helped that way. And yeah, I totally appreciate, I've thought this in watching some of the interviews with you guys, especially in discourse with the rest of the animal movement. There must be times where you want to say, God, I'm vegan, okay, I swear, here's my card. But you can't really do that necessarily, especially in the mainstream news and so on. Again, it's trying to be not a vegan thing, right? So you're kind of in a bind there sometimes.
Yeah, and I think actually that was one of the things that with some of the aspects of the campaign that the website, for example, it has this little mini game on it where it's just like where you kind of avoid the things that people often say about vegans and stuff. And when we sort of built this, we were as kind of like an organization which so we don't ask people in the organization what their diet is because it's not really what we're about, but like it contains many people who are vegans or close to vegans. We kind of saw this as like taking the mick out of ourselves a little bit, you know, and obviously like other people who didn't know us didn't necessarily. Many people read it as a joke that it was intended to be. I don't think, you know, a little oat milk carton dodging but lions eat meat like screams like take me completely seriously, but nonetheless, like I think some people didn't know that it was made by some vegans that were sort of like taking the mick at themselves as part of the campaign, and so they read it differently. I don't know what.
So I find this final failure of the campaign mindset, right? They put a personal joke into a campaign and then complain that people are complaining about it. What the fuck is wrong with you? Don't put personal jokes into national campaigns. Sorry. It's just
that was the game I was talking about earlier, and it's also got things such as, you know, I had digestive issues from being on a plant-based diet. It's got things such, as I mentioned, so much planning. So if I was, well, I'm trying to get into the head of someone who's not vegan visiting that site, that would just reinforce I would not take that as a joke. I would just be like, yes, the things everyone else is saying.
Yeah, it's like that's the part that actually it's unclear to me how they didn't think that this would undermine not just Veganuary but veganism. I'm not sure. Like what was going on through their mind, and those people are getting paid. I'm sorry I'm stuck on this, right? But like they're getting paid to do this so wrong. It's just fucking crazy.
We could have done about that, but yeah, nonetheless, for some people it didn't land because in the way that we intended, because they didn't know us in the same way. So
That's fair
yeah,
enough.
I think
Yeah,
that's
I think it's quite normal in my experience for vegans to be very defensive, basically, and guilty as charged in many cases, because you do have to get used to a lot of people asking silly questions and sort of posing the silly reasons and so on. So I think it's quite normal to be to be defensive on that point.
yeah, and I think that's I don't mean to sort of like disparage. I get it. If you're, I'm really lucky, and I live in London, and I'm in a community of animal people. So like, I'm just around a lot of people who are vegan or vegan sympathetic all the time. And like a lot of vegans are the only vegan or even vegetarian that they know, and that is a much harder life. And I don't mean to be sort of like disparaging of their perspective, and their like, I think their defensiveness or is like very warranted in many cases, right? If you spent your entire life like literally having people say these things to you all the time, then like no wonder that you feel that way about it. And I think we definitely don't want to. I don't want to come across as though I'm dismissing that. I think that's a completely legitimate way to feel, and I can't tell people that just because we intended it one way, that's how they must read it. They read it the way that they read it, right? And it's ultimately on us to land our messages the way that, like, not on people to interpret them the way that we intend them to interpret them. I think it's just to say that like yeah, when you're communicating with a little bit of irony, like some people will read it one way, some people will read it another, and it's like it's a complex thing, right?
What the fuck was ironic about that? That was just like fucking vegan bashing straight up. What the fuck was ironic about that? It's just like, again, there's like misuse of words.
Definitely, yeah, and that does feel like it hits different if you are reading it without the knowledge that the people who made it are in fact vegan, right? It's sort of like a we can say it, guys, kind of situation, right? Yeah, okay, that's fair enough. And
no, Chris, you cannot say that on the national campaign.
Yeah, those are other things.
Yeah, you can say it amongst vegans maybe when I'm joking around with other vegans, like I can make these kind of comments and claims. But then when if you're saying it to non-vegans, you're just sort of creating this vegan caricature to poke fun at and almost like justifying the things that other people say about vegans and propagating that sort of worldview that people have of vegans. It's just, and yeah, like, Patrick, this is the big thing that you hate, misinformation, and I hate too. Like, you're creating more misinformation. Like, surely there's better ways of creating donations than spreading misinformation about veganism to appease your would-be readers and the people that go into your website. Like, I just don't see how you. And because if you rewind back to, like, don't rewind back, but if you go back to what she said earlier, which is like, this might be like a way in for them, because they'll donate and they'll get thinking about the animal welfare a bit more, and then who knows, maybe they'll even go vegan. Like, she did mention that earlier on, that this might be a way in for them. Well, but if you're telling them on the face of it here that veganism is more expensive and lions,
you'll have digestive issues, yeah,
you'll get all of that, then you just, how is that going to be a way in? Because you're just kind of solidifying their worldview on veganism. So yeah, it's just again, they've said there's many failures and they've admitted to it, and this is one of them, obviously.
Yeah, so like I run a vegan Discord, right? Like lots of vegans on that Discord. I'm in private chats with a bunch of people, and I definitely made all of those jokes as a joke. But you just don't put it in a fucking campaign. Even if your campaign is addressing meat eaters, you still don't throw fucking veganism under the fucking bus with the jokes and the misconceptions. God. Let's continue.
On the website that you mentioned that you changed, I think it was really good that you guys were clearly, in my view, I think that you were open to feedback and changing things to a quite appropriate degree, because like I said, you had to...
Here's my feedback. Don't slaughter a fucking goat next time.
Sort of follow through with the principle of the campaign in order to see whether it worked. So it wasn't really an option to pull the plug after a couple of days of pressure, or certainly it would be nothing gained in that case. But yeah, you changed things in the top part of the website as well, and made the messaging a little bit softer than it was previously.
By the way, the site was down, like the specific Forget Veganuary site was down after a couple of days. So I'm thinking they're talking about the Farmkind site or something. I'm not sure what they're talking even about. Like, the site was down before JJ the fucking lion ate a steaming goat. So
which I think
Is the website still down now?
yeah.
Yeah.
Manil, you're muted. Sorry.
Yeah, no, the website's down. I can't find it, so they must have dumped it after the blowback they got.
Yeah. And I think now they're talking about the changes on the Farmkind site or something. I'm not sure what they're even fucking talking about. Maybe they've
Is the
just
game
blocked all the vegans away from the site or something. I don't know. I don't know what
Is the
happened.
game still up? The misinformation game,
No.
Patrick? I can't find it anymore. So maybe they got
That
rid
was
of
on the Forget Veganuary website. I got a screenshot of it, a video screenshot
Yeah, you
of
showed
the
me.
of the
Yeah.
game. But yeah, as you know, as a content creators ourselves in our free time of whatever, we all I'm sure you both think about how could non-vegans perceive the content, right? Or before you publish.
Yeah.
And they are not they will jump at any opportunity to criticize a post or reinforce their own beliefs. So there should have been some sort of awareness before posting this stuff. How could people perceive it?
Yeah, totally. Seems like there was I don't know, it really truly seems like a joke among colleagues became a campaign.
was appreciated. So yeah, is there anything else you want to say on that, or that's pretty? I guess you spoke
Yeah,
about
no,
something, yes.
I think ultimately what the message that our website that campaign's website has, it says something that I think it makes two claims that I think are both pretty defensible. One is that many people find being vegan hard. I think this is empirically true. Many people don't, but it is just the case that a very large number of people who
Yeah, but you fucking attribute that hard thing to the actual people who are trying Veganuary, and therefore destroying the chances of some people to go vegan or to even try Veganuary, right? They're just giving ammunition that is already relatively widespread, but they affirm it right there on that site.
who try vegan diets do not continue them, and many people say that the reason they can't do it or have stopped is because it was very difficult for all kinds of reasons. And then the second claim that we make is that you can prevent more animal suffering through giving than you can through changing your diet. And I think
What's the evidence for that? Jesus Christ.
both those two
So
claims
Yeah.
I'll just add that so with regards, he didn't talk about the digestive issue claims. He had the lions eat meat, implication there that people might just see that and think, okay, because lions do it, I can do it. The planning aspect. The Dr. Matthew Nagra, he recently published, I think it was either some sort of article about the planning and
Yeah.
And go ahead.
All
Manil.
diets need planning. All diets need planning, otherwise you have nutritional shortfalls in them. The average omnivorous diet has nutritional shortfalls. It just does. With an unplanned vegan diet, you'll have different nutritional shortfalls. That's obviously a fact of any diet. So again, you're playing into this trope that vegan diets are somehow more deficient than omnivorous diets, when in reality, any diet can be deficient in one or more nutrients, depending on how you eat it. So yeah, the average omnivore is not planning their diet, obviously, but they're also probably short in things like fiber, polyunsaturated fats, ALA, magnesium. There's a few other things. Folate. Loads.
Considering both unplanned plant-based diets and unplanned non-vegan diets, the health outcomes are still tend to be better on the vegan diet. So for me, I don't do any planning actually for my diet. I just tend to take it on the whim. But I've got the supplement, the daily supplement. Yeah.
And by the way, if you just supplement a bunch of foods, both omnivorous and vegan diet would be as easy, which we're already basically doing, right? So
eminently defensible claims. Reasonable people can disagree, but nonetheless, I think those are eminently defensible claims. And some of the stuff we said maybe did overstep that line, and we pulled it back to that line. But I think that we're comfortable with that as the kind of ultimate message of that site.
So I think the next thing that Tony says, I lost my shit. So we'll see.
Fair enough. Okay. Do you have anything to add on that, Tony? Or
I mean, I guess I might just point out that, because we took on board some of the criticism that we received and where people felt that our message wasn't actually landing in the way that we had hoped it would. I did an interview with LBC Radio that they never aired because it wasn't the sensationalist, I'm now eating meat and everyone else should too, and then just donate, which is what they were hoping for. So, we did tone it down in response. And because of that, perhaps the campaign didn't reach quite as wide an audience as we'd hoped, but that is.
So I didn't lose my mind over this, but she is now blaming the vegan pushback on the lack of success of the campaign. So that's fair.
A trade-off, and there are no perfect solutions in life. There are only trade-offs.
Interesting. Yeah, it's interesting to.
What they should have done is they should have live streamed. They should have live streamed a slaughter of a goat. That's what they should have done. If they really wanted maximum shock factor, why didn't they do that? Like, what are you talking about? Like,
yeah, already. You already do the rights violation, fucking televise that.
You're already paying for it. You're already getting this guy like in a farm surrounded by goats. It's like psychotically like touching one, going, "I'm gonna eat this goat." Like, you might as well just live stream the actual slaughter. Why not?
I have a better idea. Give JJ the Lion the fucking knife and tell him to slaughter the goat that you already bought for slaughter. Fantastic television, innit?
But yeah, ultimately, the vegans are to blame that the rights violation was not worthwhile, even though, we all agree that we will not know if it was, it's not worthwhile because we don't know the impact in the future.
And I get what she's saying. They're thinking that sensationalism sells more and sensationalism generates more traffic, and then that traffic will generate more donations and in the future generate more. I get what she's saying, but I just think it's a ridiculous point to kind of say that it's because of the pushback that they got. If they planned this a bit better, it could have gone a lot better.
Like, if they were like actually doing this relatively smartly, and given the script to forget Veganuary, I think this would have been, minus the fucking rights violations, which I have to say again and fucking again, this could have been like actually a fantastic campaign, because when you have like two oppositions fight each other, it's really delicious for the media.
Just add that in their article, they did not address the rights violations again, just if people are joining the stream now, or the misinformation. Why was that necessary? That was not, as far as I can see, covered in the article.
Yeah.
Heat that you guys would get from a more sensational campaign, the more coverage it allows you to get. But yeah, there's also then, of course, like the risks of you giving too harsh a message about veganism and making fewer vegans in the long term or something like that, which of course is not your goal as well. Okay, well, that's really everything that I had written down to ask you guys about. Is there anything else that you want to add on, or any other topics that you'd like to?
So another 9.5 minutes, we can suffer through it. I think Tony is going to say something really stupid here, so let's go.
Speak to here.
I mean, personally, I just really would like to plea to our movement to not let perfection be the enemy of progress, right? And certainly at Veganuary, that was very much our model and our motto. And I think, we as a movement, we really have to try, and it's hard because we all care so much about animals and we know how bad they suffer, but we have to try and step back and remain objective and focus.
I've not got the impression from Veganuary that their whole philosophy is perfection.
That's what she's saying. So that's what she's saying. Don't let perfection be the enemy of progress. That is the philosophy of Veganuary, because Veganuary doesn't tell people to go vegan full stop forever. It asks them to do a month. So she's saying that Veganuary does embody that sort of philosophy, which again, I want to listen to the rest of this and we'll discuss that as well.
Yeah, I'm gonna go a little bit back. Sorry.
To our movement to not let perfection be the enemy of progress, right? And certainly at Veganuary, that was very much our model and our motto. And I think, we as a movement, we really have to try, and it's hard because we all care so much about animals and we know how bad they suffer, but we have to try and step back and remain objective and focus on the reality. So where is society at the moment? Where can we realistically make progress for animals in our lifetime? And we have a duty to those animals to try and make as much progress for them as possible. We need to be less interested in being morally right and more interested in making a difference.
Yeah, I think that's well said.
Maybe I've missed the place where I blew up, but never mind, doesn't matter.
No, yeah, that was fine. You got the right bit. But yeah, listening back again, it feels like she is saying that Veganuary was asking for people to be perfect by asking them to go vegan. So she wasn't very it wasn't very clear because it could have been both ways. You could interpret
Yeah.
that. Like, is it that Veganuary, by telling people to go vegan for a month, they were asking for perfectionism, which I don't think they are, because Veganuary literally, the whole premise of it, most vegans don't even like Veganuary, like not most, but some vegans don't even like Veganuary because it's asking people to do a month and then people go back to doing what they were doing before after that month. But I see that month as a gateway almost, and it has created a lot of vegans. Like, I know so many vegans that chose Veganuary to be the day that they start, like that January 1st, I'm going to start from this day. And then they usually, a lot of them carry on. I don't know what the statistics are, but it does create more vegans than if that Veganuary didn't exist. That's my opinion, and that's probably backed up actually. But when you look at the numbers of people that sign up and then people that will continue or at least down, so that is creating net less rights violations. But she's acting like, you know, when you ask people to do that, you're asking for perfectionism, which is not true. If that's what she meant.
Yeah, not sure, but like Chris himself, he went vegan because of Veganuary. He's a Veganuary vegan, so yeah.
But Moral Ambition is really, I think it's a really inspiring book if people haven't read it. And he makes this point in really quite stark terms, but it's like ultimately what matters is like, are we making the world a better place? And like sometimes we, that like we shouldn't allow, we should make sure that that's always at the center of like the activities that we're doing. I wanted to make a different point, a slightly different point, if I could. So
sure how,
yeah, go on.
I'm not sure that doing challenges that, you know, violate rights makes the world a better place.
Yeah, we just don't have the empirics on it, that if you slaughter one goat, you can prevent 10 goats from being slaughtered somewhere down the line. I don't know.
I think one of the things that in some of the discourse I've seen around this campaign, a lot of people have kind of attributed, have sort of seen obviously that we kind of we at Farmkind, we think that like we can look at like how cost effective a charity is, and like we can say that some charities are more impactful than others and things like this. And they've said, oh, this is like they're somehow like avatars of the effective altruism movement or something like this, and like this is you know, stands for like this part of the movement, and like try to make it kind of EAs versus everybody else thing. I think I'd like to make like 2 points on that. One is to say that like many EA people also disagree with us about the campaign for like the same reasons that like many people in there who would not call themselves part of the EA part of the movement do. And so I
So fucking everybody hates this campaign, and yet they started this fucking interview by saying, well, we're just learning and maybe we can improve this campaign next year.
Yeah, I'll add that the EA Effective Altruism group, they are primarily motivated by reducing suffering, not that's their sort of, I don't know if you two, Dr. Manil and Virtue Postmortem, whether you came across effective altruism before, but they're primarily motivated by reducing suffering, which is very hard to measure.
Yeah, and my understanding from, I did hear a little bit about it. My understanding is that they use most of the donations on like saving the smallest animals. And so that's how they get like the statistics up, or not saving, maybe like reducing suffering of smaller animals. And so they can say, we helped these many animals. Like, for instance, some of those animals are arguably maybe not even sentient. We're not sure. I don't know. Like, I'm just like throwing it out there. And it's like they're like searching the number and not necessarily like creating less suffering, even like by their standards. But I don't know.
I do think that like for those listeners who are less familiar with kind of effective altruism, you should not take like Farmkind's approach or what we say as like representative of anything beyond our own opinions, because I think it is just the case that like I think more EAs disagree with us about this campaign than agreed with us from what I've seen. But secondly, I also think that it can come across to people as though EA is sort of like, oh, like we've kind of crunched the numbers, we know what the right thing to do is, and like it's just these charities, these are the only ones, like all the money on shrimp or something like this, you know. And I do think that like it's always important to emphasize that a really key part of the approach that we certainly have at Farmkind is trying to be humble and think about like, where does the evidence lead us, but acknowledging the massive uncertainty of the evidence base in our movement and in the work that we're trying to do. And all the work is really, really hard. And very like we have found a few things that do seem to work really well, and there's a lot of stuff that's very, very experimental. Like it's hard to get data. It's hard. There aren't really RCTs in our space compared to say global health or something. We're all like working with like having to apply quite a lot of judgment to the work that we do. And in that environment, reasonable people can disagree. And just because we think that just because we recommend the 6 charities we do, that doesn't mean those are the 6 charities that we think are the only good charities. And we are very open to charities that maybe I don't think are necessarily meet the same bar. I definitely think I could be wrong about that. And overall, we're really happy that we have a diverse movement with lots of people trying different things that we don't think will work, but nonetheless know that we could be wrong about that. And I just wanted to really emphasize that we don't think that we don't have all the answers at Farmkind, and I don't think any sort of effective altruism person would say that they thought they had all the answers either. And we really value the breadth of experimentation and approaches in our movement, because I think that ultimately that is how we'll succeed, by trying lots of things and then seeing what works.
100% agree. Yeah, we haven't.
So did you want to say something?
No. You're gonna do it. Go on.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if you're thinking of what I wanted to say, but I was just going to say that effective altruism, as I understand it, was it created by Peter Singer, or like that?
I'm not sure.
You can double check on that, but I think it was to do with his work, and he's a pure utilitarian, which has this ethical theory can be critiqued itself. So, for example, I mentioned with my discussion with Chris that, for example, violating someone in their sleep with no suffering or well-being generated, that would be a morally neutral act under pure utilitarianism. So I think it's very also important to critique ethical theories, which is why I don't think I'm not a pure utilitarian.
No, I think you're a pure deontologist, frankly. That's my theory, Patrick. I'll explain it to you one day. Anyways, I know. And that's not what I was going to say. I was going to say it's fine to experiment. It's fine to seek a new thing to do, right? We in our Discord server constantly are looking for something new to do, like something new, how to increase the knowledge, the understanding and stuff like that. It's just like we have this line where we not gonna increase rights violations while doing that, right, intentionally, and that's what Farmkind has done. And that's just like a line that I don't think as vegans, even utilitarian vegans, we should cross, right? Like if you're placing a bet, make sure you're not placing somebody's life definitely lost on that bet. I don't know. I'm like, okay.
Ended factory farming yet or created a vegan world. So no one's found the solution, right? The one tactic that's going to make this happen. So yeah, break the mold, get out there and try something new.
Yeah,
try slaughtering gold.
Yeah, I mean that's what. Yeah, I've sort of described. That's why I've sort of described it like moral entrepreneurship, because you're kind of taking a risk. But in a sense, we all are, because, like you say, we don't have very good data that any of these approaches will work, and yet we've good reasons to think that some of them work better than others, and so on. So it's definitely developing. And yeah, I would say, I mean, I've heard some criticisms of effective altruism, which kind of end up being criticisms of some current effective altruist or a particular person's position. But I mean, I said on this, I think of it similarly to like science, in the sense that there could be some individual scientists or effective altruists who are wrong about a particular thing, but the solution would be to do more research on that and work out a better way to do it, and more science or more effective altruism. And I would think of that as part of that process as well. And yeah, I appreciate that you guys have said since the start you'll be willing to say if this was wrong, or if any of your campaigns are worse than expected or whatever, and that risk taking, your organisation sort of in a unique position to do that. Of course, bigger orgs simply couldn't. So yeah, I don't hate that there's some risk takers in the movement, and I think that that diversity of strategies and learning from it is going to be crucial to getting us there in the long term. Nice. Okay. Well, maybe one final question I can ask you, and you may not be able to share anything about this. Any clues about future campaigns that you have in mind?
So we've just wrapped up our 2026 planning. We currently don't have.
God help us.
I think like sort of in this spicy realm. We basically last year was a really great year for us. We did so we helped Lewis Bollard out with his interview on the Dwarkesh podcast, which raised well over $2 million overall for animal charities. We ran a bunch of experiments as Farmkind. We did to give you a sense of the breadth, we did some much more cozy, fluffy things. We ran a protest for people with their pets to protest against factory farming in New York, as one attempt at media stuff that no one was interested in the media. We tried various forms of advertising, we tried all sorts of things, and we found, somewhat to our surprise, that some of those things were actually like quite good and quite effective. So this year, what one of our big focuses is doubling down on the stuff that really worked last year, and doing more of those things. And so we're
Go on, Pat.
Again, he's saying that some things were quite effective. So why have they jumped to violating rights?
I don't know. New stuff. We should try new stuff, Patrick.
Yeah, we're pleased to be in a position
Entrepreneurship,
where
if
now
you make many
for most-
businesses, because many are, if you have many businesses, one or two of them are likely to fail anyway. So it's like that, isn't it?
Yeah.
most of Farmkind's history, we've been in a position of like having fundamentally no idea how to how we can actually get this to work, and just trying things and seeing whether anything will work, and most of those things failing and not working, and yet somehow still growing month on month inexplicably ultimately. And now we are in a position where actually we've got some stuff where like, oh, this actually seems promising, and so yeah, we're going to be kind of getting our heads down and trying to make the most of those opportunities that we've identified, basically.
Excellent. And ads, is there a return on investment for ads?
So sometimes it depends on the context, basically. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think anything interesting has been said, and I think I blinked on the place where Tony actually completely reframed the criticism towards the campaign as she basically said, well, the criticism towards the campaign is that we're not telling people to go vegan, which is not true, right? Like, if you want to do a welfare campaign to increase the welfare of animals because you think it will... Something fell, never mind. Because you think it will decrease animals' rights violations over the long haul, that's fine. The main criticism was the increasing of rights violations, including shitting on a vegan institution when they absolutely didn't have to do this. It just takes a little bit more creativity to say neither. To neither say that we should go vegan, but also do not say, oh no, don't go vegan. It's fine, So
yeah, they could have easily just said, look, we understand, people like eating animals, and this is how they, these are the conditions they are kept in. If you're going to continue eating animals, you can still pay into these institutions that will help to at least give the animals a better life and all this kind of stuff. You can still do that without kind of saying being vegan is hard, fuck veganism, fuck Veganuary, all of this stuff. Say no to Veganuary and all this kind of stuff. They didn't need to do that. It almost, again, I think it's almost like they did it because of the press. Like she said it herself, right? The more harsh the language was, presumably towards veganism as well, the more sensationalist it was, the better it would have been for their campaign. So this was a tactic that they used. I know they didn't need to do it, but I guess they did think this through. Of course they thought this through. I don't think for a second that they didn't actually think about all the different ways they could have done this and did do this. This was just what they arrived at, and obviously we've got our criticisms of it. But the language they used was very... Oh
shit, Manil, you died.
Go back?
I think so. I think just Discord, sometimes it just fart. It just happens. Sorry,
Yeah,
can you
I
repeat
heard
the
the
last sentence? Yeah.
So I was saying, they said it themselves, they were trying to get on the side of people who are already anti-vegan, so they had to use this kind of strong language and stuff like that. And so I did think they thought that through, and that's how they arrived here. And I did this. So they could have done it differently, but I don't think they wanted to. Is the thing. We all have our criticisms of it. We're saying they could have done it without dicking on vegans, without creating the rights violations, all of that stuff. But I really think that this is the way they chose to go down because they thought it would obviously create the most sensationalism, and they wouldn't have got it without that. I don't know what you think. What do you think?
Pat, any last words?
I think you gave a good summary, Dr. Manil, and yeah, I also like the point that Virtue Postmortem made that throughout the podcast, 2 out of 3 of them are, at least, vegan. One imperfect vegan, what that means, and they could have talked about, at least in vegan conversations, not use the word factory farming. That sort of gives me red flags, well, like alarm bells ringing when vegans are talking about factory farming amongst each other. I don't know, do you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. I not only agree, I raged about it for like an hour for the first time. Yeah.
Yeah, factory farming is what you would talk about amongst people that aren't vegan. Because this is what I always say as well. Like vegans who are in it now, like our minds are completely different in how we view the world and how we view animals as a whole, compared to people who are non-vegan. For non-vegans, animals are still an object. They're a commodity. They're something to be used and eaten, and they're viewed as completely something separate from even sentient. To be honest with you, they're not considered in their moral consciousness, apart from pet animals maybe. But even then, some pet animals are treated like objects, aren't they? So you have to use the language of non-vegans when you're speaking to non-vegans, and that's where factory farming comes in, because you can really tug at where their empathy level is. But yeah, you're right. Amongst vegans, you have to, you're not going to say factory farmed animals, because it should be all animals. Like, it doesn't matter if they're in a industrial setting or not. Like, at the end of the day, it's all the same.
I never use
This is
that.
also-
I only like
Nah.
address it when they use it, and then I'm like, "Wow,
Yeah.
why is it not okay to put animals in farms, like in factory farms?" And then
Yeah.
I go from there into abolition. Yeah, go on, Pat.
I was gonna say, yeah, Chris's audience is mostly a vegan, animal rights, and vegan channel, or animal advocacy channel. So I don't know if Tom was under the impression that lots of non-vegans were going to be watching the conversation, which was why they were using the word factory farming. But yeah,
But then why did they admit that they are both vegan? One of
Yeah.
them imperfect, whatever that means. Yeah. I don't know. Okay,
Yeah.
well, seems that we've gone through it. Manil, thank you very much for coming to my
thank you
channel.
so much
This,
for joining.
yeah,
thanks for
really
listening.
appreciate. You're always welcome to come back if you ever have something to react to that is interest of you. Patrick, as always, a pleasure. Thank you very much for coming. I don't know, any last words,
Thank
like summary? No, we're done it. All right.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
actually, summary, donations are good. Don't discourage behavior change. Don't push out misinformation. Yeah.
Yeah,
Manil?
I think to put it frank, I think the intentions of the people running this campaign were pure. I just think the execution was very, very clumsy, and has obviously backfired, and that hopefully they learn from it. And yeah, I just think it could have been done much better than at the expense of vegans and at the expense of the poor animals that had to be eaten in order for this campaign to even take place. So yeah.
Yeah, and the last thing I will say, I see a lot of undermining understanding of media, right? Because I used to work at the TV station, and I kind of understand now better than maybe most people how to get the attention of the TV media. So their understanding of it was real, but there were so many ways to get there. And blaming the fallback on vegans is kind of weird, Tony. It's kind of weird. All right, everybody in the chat, thank you for holding on. I saw some of the comments, but of course I was concentrating on the stream. And we'll see you next time. Yeah.
Are there any questions just before we jump off?
Oh, yeah. If somebody wants to ask some questions, Manil is here. If the new person, Patrick, is also here. If you have nutritional questions, anything like that.
Every day you have Dr. Manil live to answer questions. So.
No personal health questions, please. I can't even see the questions, so you're gonna have to read them out.
Yeah, no problem. I'll share it with you or something. Question: what kind of campaigns are you guys planning? I have something brewing in my Discord server that I probably better not talk about. It will be interesting if it ever becomes a thing. It could fail as well, but I can promise you no direct rights violations for that campaign. Pat?
I'm not planning any campaign. I just continue doing what I'm doing. I feel like, if I have to quit my day job, then I could do a campaign. But yeah, I haven't got the mental bandwidth right now, unless I quit my day job.
Yeah, gotcha. Soy Daddy is asking, can we beat babies if we buy some toys to offset?
This is what Patrick was getting at when you did the debate, right? Which was like, would you offer the same sort of logic if it came to human rights violations? But I guess people always turn around and say that we're not living in a world where human rights are being violated on the mass scale as in is with animals. So the analogy is difficult to logically. The analogy makes sense, but actually in this real world, it doesn't. So yeah, you can call someone on a contradiction logically, but at the same time, it's just not applicable to the real world because the majority of the world don't see animals like how they see babies, right?
During my conversation with Chris, I said like if it was normal, and then he said, yeah, if it was normal, legal, we kept it very PG, so we didn't go into examples of human rights violations. We just used it as a general term, and he said that he would, bite the bullet on an analogous situation. But I said that I'm not sure he understood. He knew the bullet that he was biting on because,
I guess you say you would bite the bullet because you don't want to call yourself in a contradiction, but at the same time, I don't think you would. Because it's hard, right? Because you're not in that situation, you're not in that mindset, that environment. Like our brains are not wired to see humans as less. Like if you ask a racist that question, they would be like, "Yeah, fine, cool." Fuck the the baby of the color that I am not, kind of thing. Like they wouldn't care because they're racist.
And he was, I double checked. I was like, would you? And then he was like, yes, if. And then he put an implication saying, yes, if it will generate so much more capacity for reducing rights violations in a signaling way than other.
Which we don't have the answers to. Which we don't even have the answers to.
I pointed out that this is not the case for the Farmkind campaign. We don't have evidence to say that it is. Given that this Farmkind campaign, we're paying people to consume sentient beings will generate so much more less rights violations compared to cruelty-free campaigns.
Yeah. I don't see any other questions. I think that's a good place to stop as well. Manil, thank you very much for coming. Would you like to promote your social media a little bit?
I mean, you can follow me if you want. It's just Dr. Iron Junkie. Sometimes I put up health-related stuff. Sometimes it's animal rights-related stuff. Sometimes it's reaction videos. Sometimes it's memes. It's a personal page that became more than it was designed to ever be. Ever since going vegan, I decided just to use it as a way I can bring more awareness to veganism. And from it, I know firsthand that I've created vegans because they tell me. And like I know I've been on so many podcasts as well now, especially like not even non-vegan podcasts as well, and people have reached out and told me that they've gone vegan because of it. So I just continue doing what I'm doing that way. Is it gonna get is it gonna have the most benefit? I don't know, but it just allows me to at least do a little bit of something whilst carrying on living my life as well.
But I'm someone who you convinced. I was following your posts when I was not vegan, so on Twitter back in the day. And then at the same time, I watched your content, Dr. Nagra's, and then there was Danny's video where I went vegan. But I'm sure you gave me that extra.
Yeah, I like to think I was from the fitness side of things. You thought it was.
Yeah, I was reading I can't remember the acronym for this channel where you had the whole blog.
RNT, yeah.
RNT Fitness, yeah.
Okay, cool. Patrick, social media, please promote it.
Social media is Foolproof Mastery. If someone wants to follow, that would be great.
Okay. And everybody, before you go, please share this video with somebody who might be interested. And thank you very much for coming. See you next time. Bye.